The morning of December 27, 1942, broke gray and humid over Port Moresby, New Guinea. Lieutenant Richard Ira Bong climbed into the cockpit of his Lockheed P-38 Lightning, serial number 41-1983, and fired up both Allison V-17-10 engines. The counter-rotating propellers bit into the tropical air as 12 P-38s lifted off Laloki Aerodrome. Captain Thomas Lynch led the formation toward Buna, where Japanese reinforcements threatened Allied positions. Bong was 22 years old, a farm boy from Poplar, Wisconsin, population 600. His father Carl had immigrated from Sweden in 1898 with nothing but determination and a willingness to work. The family farm produced crops and children, 9 of them, while young Dick built model airplanes and dreamed of flying real ones. The civilian pilot training program at Superior State Teachers College gave him wings before Pearl Harbor changed everything. Now he flew the most advanced fighter aircraft in the world over some of the most primitive terrain on Earth. The P-38 Lightning was a technological marvel, 2 supercharged engines producing 2,850 horsepower combined, for 50 caliber machine guns and one 20mm cannon concentrated in the nose, tricycle landing gear, and a range that could reach targets 1,500 miles away. No other single-seat fighter could match its capabilities in 1942. At 11,000 feet, Lynch spotted them first 25 Japanese aircraft approaching from the northeast. Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters escorted Aichi D-3A dive bombers toward Allied shipping at Oro Bay. The odds were roughly 2-1 against the Americans, but the P-38s held every tactical advantage except numbers. "Bandits, 11 o'clock high," Lynch transmitted. "Drop tanks and prepare to engage." Bong's hands moved with practiced precision across the cockpit controls. Fuel selector valves to internal tanks. Mixture controls to rich. Propeller controls to high RPM. Gun switches to fire. The Lightning's complex systems demanded split-second coordination, but properly managed, they transformed the aircraft into a devastating weapon platform. The Japanese formation held course, apparently unaware of the approaching P-38s. Zero pilots had grown accustomed to facing Curtiss P-40 Warhawks and Bell P-39 Airacobras aircraft they could outmaneuver and outfight in turning combat. The Lightning was different. Its speed at 25,000 feet exceeded 400 miles per hour, 100 miles per hour faster than the Zero. Its climb rate reached 3,500 feet per minute with military power engaged. Lynch led the attack from above and behind, using the Lightning's superior speed to position his formation advantageously. The P-38s dove from 11,000 feet, building airspeed rapidly. At 400 yards range, Lynch opened fire with all guns. His target, a Zero at the formation's edge, erupted in flames and fell toward the jungle below. Bong selected his own target, another Zero attempting to turn into the attack. The Japanese pilot pulled his aircraft into a tight left bank, trying to bring his nose around for a shot at the diving P-38s. But Bong had trained for exactly this scenario under General George Kenney's demanding combat preparation program. Never turn with a Zero. Never slow down in a fight. Use speed and altitude to control the engagement. The Lightning's nose-mounted armament offered a crucial advantage over wing-mounted guns. Most fighters required pilots to calculate convergence, the point where bullets from wing-mounted weapons crossed paths. The P-38's guns fired straight ahead along the aircraft's centerline, creating a dense cone of destruction wherever the pilot aimed. At 300 yards, Bong pressed the trigger. 4 streams of 50 caliber bullets converged with 20mm explosive shells. The Zero's lightweight construction, optimized for maneuverability at the expense of protection, offered little resistance. Fuel tanks erupted. Control surfaces disintegrated. The fighter spun out of control and crashed into the swampland below. Bong's first kill lasted perhaps 10 seconds from trigger pull to impact. He had no time to celebrate. Another Zero dove toward him from 2 o'clock high, its pilot attempting to capitalize on the P-38's momentary vulnerability during the attack run. But the Lightning's twin-boom design provided exceptional visibility, and Bong spotted the threat immediately. Full throttles forward. Both engines responded with a surge of power that pressed him back into his seat. The Allison V-17-10s, each producing 1,425 horsepower at war emergency power, pulled the P-38 away from the pursuing Zero at a rate the Japanese pilot couldn't match. Within seconds, Bong had opened the distance to over 1,000 yards. He pulled into a climbing turn, using the Lightning's superior high-altitude performance to gain positional advantage. The Zero pilot, committed to his diving attack, couldn't follow. At 15,000 feet, Bong rolled inverted and dove back toward the fight, building airspeed for another attack run. Below him, the air battle spread across 10 miles of jungle and coastline. P-38s used hit-and-run tactics, making high-speed passes through the Japanese formation before climbing away to safety. Zero pilots, frustrated by their inability to engage in turning combat, began diving toward the ground in attempts to escape. Several Japanese bombers jettisoned their ordnance loads and turned for home. Bong spotted a lone Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar, attempting to flee northward at low altitude. The Japanese fighter, powered by a single 970 horsepower engine, managed perhaps 330 miles per hour in level flight. The P-38 cruised at 360 miles per hour and could reach 414 miles per hour at military power. The chase lasted 12 minutes. Bong closed steadily, using his altitude advantage to maintain speed while the Oscar pilot jinked desperately through valleys and over ridgelines. At 500 feet above the jungle canopy, evasive maneuvering became increasingly dangerous. One mistake would send the Japanese fighter cartwheeling into the trees. At 200 yards range, Bong fired his second burst of the day. The Oscar's right wing folded upward, severed by explosive shells. The aircraft rolled inverted and crashed into a stand of ironwood trees, sending up a column of black smoke visible for miles. 2 kills in his first combat mission. Bong climbed back to altitude and rejoined the formation for the flight home. Lynch's squadron had claimed 12 Japanese aircraft destroyed for the loss of 1 P-38 pilot safe. Aircraft a write-off after battle damage forced a wheels-up landing at Port Moresby. The victory established patterns that would define the next 2 years of Pacific air combat. Japanese aircraft, optimized for the early war period when fuel supplies and pilot training levels remained high, couldn't adapt to the changing tactical environment. American industry had produced a fighter that could dictate engagement terms, fighting when conditions favored victory, disengaging when they didn't. Richard Bong's path to the cockpit of the world's most advanced fighter began on a 160-acre farm outside Poplar, Wisconsin. Born September 24, 1920, he was the third of 9 children born to Carl and Dora Bong. Carl worked as a blacksmith and farmer, building a modest but stable life for his growing family. The Swedish immigrant ethic of hard work and quiet determination shaped young Dick's character from an early age. The farm provided everything needed for survival: crops, livestock, and endless chores that built physical strength and practical skills. But Dick's interests extended beyond agriculture. He spent hours building model airplanes, studying their proportions and imagining himself at the controls of real aircraft. When mail planes flew overhead en route to the summer White House where President Calvin Coolidge vacationed in northern Wisconsin, Dick would run outside to watch until they disappeared beyond the horizon. Athletic ability earned him recognition at Poplar High School. He played baseball, basketball, and hockey with natural skill, but mechanical aptitude set him apart from his classmates. Dick could repair engines, build radios, and understand complex systems intuitively. Teachers noted his analytical approach to problems and his ability to break down complicated processes into manageable components. In 1938, Dick enrolled at Superior State Teachers College with plans to become an educator. The civilian pilot training program offered college students the opportunity to earn private pilot licenses while studying, and Dick immediately applied. His first flight instructor, a civilian contractor named Bert Kinder, noted the young man's exceptional coordination and spatial awareness. "Natural pilot," Kinder wrote in his logbook. "Learns quickly and flies with confidence." By 1941, Dick had accumulated 97 hours of flight time and earned his commercial pilot certificate. When the Army Air Corps opened its aviation cadet program to college students, he enlisted immediately. Training began at Santa Ana Army Air Base in California, where aviation cadet Bong learned military procedures, aircraft systems, and aerial gunnery. His primary flight instructor at Luke Field, Arizona, was Captain Barry Goldwater, a future United States Senator who had volunteered for military service despite his age and political connections. Goldwater recognized exceptional ability when he saw it. "Bong was the finest natural pilot I ever met," he later recalled. He had instinctive understanding of aircraft performance and an analytical mind that grasped tactical concepts immediately. Advanced training introduced Dick to high-performance aircraft and combat tactics. The North American at-6 Texan provided experience with retractable landing gear, constant speed propellers, and radio navigation. Gunnery training taught him to calculate lead angles, manage ammunition, and engage moving targets from aircraft traveling at high speed. On January 19, 1942, aviation cadet Richard I. Bong received his silver wings and commission as second lieutenant in the Army Air Forces. His first assignment sent him back to Luke Field as a gunnery instructor, a position that reflected his exceptional shooting scores and analytical approach to aerial combat. The role might have kept him stateside for the duration of the war, but Lieutenant Bong had other plans. He requested transfer to operational units and got his opportunity in May 1942 when orders arrived for Hamilton Field, California. There he would transition to the twin-engine Lockheed P-38 Lightning and prepare for combat duty in the Pacific Theater. Hamilton Field introduced Lieutenant Bong to the most complex fighter aircraft in the American inventory. The P-38's twin Allison engines required coordination between throttles, mixture controls, and propeller settings. Its turbo-supercharged power plants delivered maximum performance at altitudes where most fighters struggled for power. The tricycle landing gear and nose-wheel steering demanded different techniques from conventional tailwheel aircraft. But complexity brought capability. The Lightning could climb to 20,000 feet in 7 minutes. It could cruise at 300 miles per hour for over 1,000 miles with drop tanks installed. Its concentrated nose armament delivered devastating firepower with surgical precision. For a pilot with the skills to master its systems, the P-38 offered combat advantages no other fighter could match. Lieutenant Bong threw himself into Lightning training with characteristic intensity. He studied technical manuals, practiced emergency procedures, and flew formation flights throughout Northern California. His natural mechanical aptitude helped him understand the aircraft's complex systems, while his analytical mind grasped the tactical implications of its performance capabilities. It was during this training period that Lieutenant Bong's flying caught the attention of Major General George C. Kenney, who would soon become commander of the 5th Air Force in the Southwest Pacific. Kenney observed the young pilot's skill during training flights and noted his exceptional aerial gunnery scores. When orders came to select 50 P-38 pilots for Pacific duty, Lieutenant Bong's name appeared near the top of the list. The journey to Australia began in September 1942. Lieutenant Bong flew as a passenger aboard a consolidated B-24 Liberator transport, watching the Pacific Ocean stretch endlessly below while contemplating the combat missions ahead. He carried with him the technical knowledge gained through intensive training, the flying skills developed over 400 hours of flight time, and the quiet determination inherited from Swedish immigrant grandparents who had built successful lives from nothing. General Kenney met his new pilots at Brisbane and outlined their mission. Japanese forces controlled most of New Guinea and threatened Australia itself. American and Australian ground forces needed air support to halt the enemy advance and begin the long counteroffensive toward Japan. The P-38 Lightning, with its long range and heavy armament, would spearhead that effort. Lieutenant Bong joined the 9th Fighter Squadron 49th Fighter Group. The Flying Knights, the unit had distinguished itself flying Curtiss P-40 Warhawks in defense of Darwin, but now prepared to transition to the Lightning. While waiting for aircraft delivery, Bong and other 9th Squadron pilots were temporarily assigned to the 39th Fighter Squadron for combat experience. On December 27, 1942, over the jungles of New Guinea, Lieutenant Richard Bong scored his first aerial victories and began the campaign that would make him America's greatest fighter ace. The aircraft that would carry Richard Bong to 40 aerial victories began as a radical solution to an impossible specification. In February 1937, the Army Air Corps issued Circular Proposal X-608, demanding a twin-engine interceptor capable of 400 miles per hour at 20,000 feet, with a climb rate exceeding 2,500 feet per minute and an operating ceiling above 35,000 feet. No existing aircraft could meet these requirements. At Lockheed's Burbank, California facility, Chief Engineer Hall L. Hibbard assembled a design team to tackle the challenge. His assistant, 27-year-old Clarence Kelly Johnson, had already established a reputation for innovative thinking and practical engineering solutions. The team they built would later become famous as the Skunk Works, though that designation wouldn't appear for several more years. Johnson's design philosophy emphasized performance over convention. The Army specification couldn't be met with traditional single-engine configurations. No power plant available in 1937 could produce enough horsepower while maintaining reasonable weight. Twin engines offered the answer, but conventional twin-engine designs sacrifice speed for stability and cargo capacity. The solution emerged from systematic analysis of aerodynamic requirements. Two engines demanded two propellers, but conventional twin designs placed engines in the wings, creating asymmetric thrust problems if one engine failed. Johnson moved the engines outboard and added twin booms to house them, connecting everything with a central nacelle containing the pilot and armament. The configuration looked strange but solved multiple engineering problems simultaneously. Engines mounted in streamlined nacelles reduced drag compared to wing installations. The twin boom tail provided adequate control authority even with one engine inoperative. Counter-rotating propellers eliminated torque effects that plagued single-engine fighters. The central nacelle offered space for heavy armament while maintaining proper center of gravity limits. Lockheed received the contract on June 23, 1937, and immediately began detailed design work. The XP-38 prototype incorporated technologies that pushed the boundaries of available engineering knowledge. Turbo-supercharged Allison V-17-10 engines provided sea-level power at high altitudes. All-metal construction used advanced aluminum alloys and innovative manufacturing techniques. The tricycle landing gear retracted completely into the central nacelle, reducing drag and improving ground handling. Armament installation presented unique challenges. Traditional fighters mounted guns in wings, but wing-mounted weapons required convergence settings that limited effective range. Johnson concentrated all armament in the nose, creating a devastating cone of fire without convergence limitations. For .50 caliber machine guns provided volume of fire while a single 20mm cannon delivered explosive punch. The prototype XP-38 first flew on January 27, 1939, with Lockheed test pilot Ben Kelsey at the controls. Initial flight tests revealed exceptional performance. Speed exceeded 400 miles per hour and climb rate surpassed specifications. But the aircraft also demonstrated handling characteristics unlike any previous fighter. Kelsey's transcontinental speed run on February 11, 1939, ended in disaster when the prototype crashed during landing approach at Mitchell Field, New York. Investigation revealed control problems at high speed, a phenomenon later understood as compressibility effects. The crash destroyed the only XP-38 but generated enough publicity to secure production orders. 13 pre-production YP-38s incorporated lessons learned from the prototype's brief flight test program. Refined tail surfaces improved high-speed handling. Self-sealing fuel tanks enhanced survivability. Modified armament installation increased reliability and ammunition capacity. By September 1940, the Army had ordered 677 production P-38s for delivery beginning in 1941. Production P-38E fighters reached operational units in August 1941, 4 months before Pearl Harbor. Early aircraft suffered from various mechanical problems, engine cooling issues, electrical system failures, and complex maintenance requirements that challenged ground crews. But pilots quickly recognized the Lightning's combat potential. Nothing else in the inventory could climb as fast, fly as high, or hit as hard at long range. The P-38F introduced combat modifications based on early operational experience. Reinforced wing structures carried drop tanks or bombs. Improved engines delivered more reliable power. Enhanced cockpit heating addressed pilot comfort at high altitudes. Radio equipment upgrades improved communication reliability. By June 1942, the Lightning had evolved into a mature combat aircraft ready for large-scale operations. General George Kenney understood the P-38's capabilities better than most senior commanders. As head of the 4th Air Force's West Coast training programs, he had observed Lightning pilots develop tactics that exploited the aircraft's unique performance characteristics. When promoted to 5th Air Force Command in the Southwest Pacific, Kenney immediately requested every available P-38 for his theater. The request competed with European theater demands for long-range escort fighters. General Henry Hap Arnold, commanding general of the Army Air Forces, had to balance competing priorities with limited production capacity. Lockheed's Burbank facility could produce approximately 100 P-38s per month, far below demand from multiple theaters. Production bottlenecks centered on engine availability and complex manufacturing processes. Each P-38 required 2 Allison V-17-10 engines, and Allison struggled to meet demand from multiple aircraft programs. The Lightning's sophisticated systems, turbo superchargers, hydraulic controls, electrical equipment required skilled assembly workers and extensive quality control testing. By late 1942, Lockheed had delivered over 700 P-38s to combat units worldwide. The aircraft served in Alaska, North Africa, England, and the Southwest Pacific. Each theater developed tactics suited to local conditions and enemy capabilities. But nowhere would the Lightning achieve greater success than in the hands of pilots like Richard Bong operating from primitive airstrips in New Guinea and the Philippines. Lieutenant Commander Saburo Sakai banked his Mitsubishi A6M0 fighter into a gentle turn and scanned the sky above Rabaul's volcanic peaks. September 14, 1943 had dawned clear and hot, with towering cumulus clouds building over New Britain's mountainous interior. American bombers would come today, they came every day now, and his dwindling fighter squadron would rise to meet them. Sakai had survived 2 years of combat flying, from Pearl Harbor through the grinding attrition of the Solomons campaign. His 64 confirmed victories made him one of Japan's leading aces, but experience had taught him to fear certain American aircraft more than others. The Grumman F-4F Wildcat was rugged and well flown. The Chance Vought F-4U Corsair climbed like a rocket and dove like a thunderbolt. But nothing worried him more than the twin-boomed fighter the Americans called Lightning. Ichi Sentoki, N.I. Parado, he muttered to his wingman, 1 fighter, 2 pilots. The crude nickname captured Japanese pilots' bewilderment at the P-38's unusual configuration. 2 engines, 2 propellers, twin booms, but only 1 pilot. It looked like 2 aircraft joined at the center, an impression reinforced by its exceptional performance capabilities. The first Lightnings had appeared over New Guinea in late 1942, flown by inexperienced American pilots who made tactical mistakes Japanese veterans could exploit. But by mid-1943, Lightning pilots had learned to use their aircraft's advantages while avoiding its few weaknesses. The result was a fighter that could dictate engagement terms, attacking when conditions favored victory, disengaging when they didn't. Sakai's tactical analysis, shared with other experienced pilots, revealed the Lightning's combat strengths in devastating detail. Speed at altitude exceeded any Japanese fighter by 70 to 100 miles per hour. Climb rate above 20,000 feet outpaced the Zero by more than 1,000 feet per minute. Range with drop tanks reached 1,200 miles, double that of most Japanese fighters. Armament concentration in the nose delivered devastating firepower without convergence limitations. But the Lightning's most dangerous characteristic was its pilot's discipline. Unlike early war American pilots who would accept turning combat invitations, Lightning pilots stayed fast and high. They attacked from advantageous positions, fired accurate bursts from their concentrated armament, then climbed away before Japanese fighters could respond. The tactic was simple, effective, and nearly impossible to counter with inferior aircraft. The P-38 was in a most enviable position, Sakai wrote in his post-war memoir. He could choose to fight when and where he desired, and on his own terms. Under such conditions, the Lightning became one of the most deadly of all enemy planes. Japanese aircraft designers had optimized their fighters for the early war period when fuel supplies remained plentiful and pilot training levels peaked. The A6M0 achieved exceptional maneuverability through extreme weight reduction, no armor protection, Minimal fuel tank sealing, lightweight construction throughout. In the hands of expert pilots with unlimited fuel, these characteristics produced spectacular results. But war economies and training shortfalls changed the tactical environment. Fuel rationing limited flight training hours. Experienced pilots died in combat faster than they could be replaced. Aircraft production shifted toward quantity over quality as industrial capacity strained to meet wartime demands. By 1943, Japanese aviation faced problems that superior aircraft design couldn't solve. Commander Masatake Okumiya, a staff officer with the combined fleet, analyzed Lightning operations from a strategic perspective. American industry had produced a fighter optimized for long-range operations over vast Pacific distances. Its twin-engine reliability reduced losses to mechanical failures. Its heavy armament shortened engagement times, conserving ammunition and reducing pilot fatigue. Its high-altitude performance matched the operational environment where most combat occurred. The P-38 represented everything we lacked, Okumiya observed in post-war interviews. Range, reliability, firepower, and most importantly, adequate numbers. We could shoot down individual Lightnings, but we could never stop them from accomplishing their missions. Japanese pilots developed several tactics for engaging P-38s, though all required favorable conditions rarely encountered in combat. The preferred method involved high-altitude interception using maximum climb performance to reach the Lightning's cruising altitude before it could accelerate to fighting speed. A diving attack from directly above could succeed if executed with precise timing and accurate gunnery. Captain Hiroyoshi Nishizawa, Japan's leading ace with 87 confirmed victories, scored several Lightning kills using high-altitude interception tactics. His approach required exceptional pilot skill and perfect coordination between multiple aircraft. A formation of Zeros would climb to maximum altitude while remaining hidden in cloud cover. When Lightnings appeared below, the Japanese fighters would dive from multiple angles simultaneously, hoping to overwhelm the American pilots' defensive capabilities. But such tactics demanded fuel reserves and pilot expertise increasingly unavailable as the war progressed. By late 1943, most Japanese fighter units operated with partially trained pilots flying aircraft suffering from maintenance deficiencies and fuel shortages. Under these conditions, engaging disciplined Lightning pilots in well-maintained aircraft became virtual suicide. Lieutenant Tetsuzo Iwamoto, credited with 80 kills before his death in 1944, described Lightning engagements in his final combat report. The enemy aircraft appears at maximum range, attacks with great speed, and disappears before we can maneuver to engage. Their gunnery is extremely accurate and their aircraft absorb damage that would destroy our fighters. We shot down 3 today, but lost 9 of our own. The psychological impact of Lightning operations extended beyond immediate combat losses. Japanese pilots reported constant stress from knowing that P-38s could appear anywhere at any time, attacking with devastating firepower before disappearing into the vast Pacific sky. Ground crews struggled to maintain aircraft under increasing bombing pressure while spare parts and qualified mechanics became scarce commodities. By 1944, Japanese aviation intelligence recognized the P-38 Lightning as the most dangerous American fighter in the Pacific theater. Its combination of range, speed, and firepower had effectively eliminated Japan's early war tactical advantages. The era of Japanese air superiority was ending, victim of American industrial capacity and technological innovation embodied in Lockheed's twin-boomed fighter. Major Gunther Rahl pulled his Messerschmitt Bf 109 G6 into a tight climbing turn and watched the distinctive twin-boomed silhouette of a P-38 Lightning disappear into the morning haze over southern France. The date was March 15, 1944, and the German ace with 275 confirmed victories had just experienced his first extended combat engagement with Lockheed's advanced fighter. The encounter had lasted 12 minutes, an eternity in aerial combat, and left Rahl with grudging respect for American engineering and pilot training. His Messerschmitt held advantages in roll rate and diving speed, but the Lightning's pilots had refused to play to German strengths. They stayed fast, maintained altitude, and used their concentrated firepower to devastating effect during brief engagement windows. Der Gabelschwanz Teufel, Rahl muttered, using the nickname German pilots had coined for the P-38, the fork-tailed devil. The name captured both the aircraft's unusual appearance and its fearsome combat reputation among Luftwaffe fighter units operating on multiple fronts. German technical intelligence had analyzed captured P-38s extensively, beginning with aircraft that landed in German-controlled territory due to navigation errors or battle damage. Test flights at Rechlin revealed performance characteristics that impressed even veteran Luftwaffe pilots accustomed to flying the world's most advanced fighters. Oberst Edgar Peterson, commanding officer of the Erprobungsstelle Rechlin Test Center, submitted a detailed report on P-38 capabilities to the Reich Air Ministry in January 1944. His analysis highlighted several areas where American engineering had exceeded German achievements. The enemy aircraft demonstrates exceptional high-altitude performance due to efficient turbo supercharging systems. Climb rate above 7,000 meters surpasses our best fighters by significant margins. Twin-engine reliability provides operational advantages in long-range missions over water or hostile territory. Concentrated nose armament delivers devastating firepower without convergence limitations affecting wing-mounted weapons. But Peterson also identified weaknesses German pilots could exploit under proper circumstances. The P-38's large size and twin-engine configuration created higher wing loading than single-engine fighters, reducing maneuverability in turning combat. Complex systems required extensive maintenance support unavailable at forward airfields. Cold weather operations revealed cockpit heating problems that degraded pilot performance during high-altitude missions. Major Johannes Steinhoff, commanding officer of Jägerschwader 77, developed tactical guidance for engaging P-38s based on combat experience over Italy and southern France. His methods emphasized the Bf-109's superior roll rate and diving performance while avoiding the Lightning's advantages in speed and climb rate. Attack from high altitude using maximum diving speed. Steinhoff instructed his pilots. Fire one accurate burst during the initial pass, then continue the dive to maximum velocity. Do not attempt turning combat. Do not climb to engage. If the Lightning pilot maintains discipline, disengage and seek more favorable conditions. The tactics worked when executed properly by experienced pilots flying well-maintained aircraft. But by 1944, the Luftwaffe suffered from fuel shortages, pilot losses, and maintenance problems that made consistent execution impossible. Many encounters devolved into running battles where the P-38's superior range and endurance proved decisive. Hauptmann Erich Hartmann, the war's leading ace with 352 confirmed victories, scored 14 P-38 kills during operations over Romania and Hungary. His success came from exploiting the Lightning's few tactical vulnerabilities while avoiding its numerous strengths. The American aircraft is very dangerous when properly flown, Hartmann noted in his combat diary. Their pilots have learned to use speed and altitude control to dictate engagement terms. We can only succeed through superior positioning and perfect execution of attack runs. Any mistake allows them to escape or counter-attack with their heavy armament. German industrial analysis revealed the P-38's production sophistication compared to domestic aircraft manufacturing. Lockheed's Burbank facility used assembly line techniques that reduced construction time while maintaining quality standards. Interchangeable components simplified maintenance and repair procedures. Standardized systems reduced pilot training requirements and improved operational reliability. Dr. Ernst Heinkel, whose company produced the He-162 jet fighter, studied P-38 construction methods captured from downed aircraft. His engineers noted several innovations that German industry had not implemented. American manufacturing shows remarkable attention to production efficiency. Modular construction allows rapid assembly and field maintenance. Electrical systems use standardized components that reduce complexity and improve reliability. Hydraulic controls provide pilot assistance that reduces fatigue during long missions. Our aircraft are superior in some performance areas, but their production methods achieve better operational results. The assessment reflected a broader German recognition that American industry had achieved technological and manufacturing advantages that individual aircraft superiority couldn't overcome. The P-38 Lightning represented not just advanced engineering but also systematic industrial capacity that could produce thousands of complex aircraft while maintaining quality and reliability. Oberst Adolf Galland, general of the fighter arm, included P-38 analysis in his final war reports submitted to the German High Command. His strategic assessment acknowledged American air superiority had become irreversible due to aircraft like the Lightning. The enemy possesses fighters that equal or exceed our best aircraft in performance while being produced in quantities we cannot match. Their pilots receive extensive training and operate aircraft maintained to high standards. The P-38 Lightning exemplifies their systematic approach to aerial warfare, not necessarily the best fighter in all categories, but the best combination of capability and availability. The German analysis proved prophetic. By war's end, P-38s had destroyed more Luftwaffe aircraft than any other American fighter operating in European and Mediterranean theaters. The fork-tailed devil had lived up to its fearsome reputation. Tenente Colonnello Adriano Mantelli adjusted his oxygen mask and scanned the blue Mediterranean sky north of Sardinia. His Macchi C-202 Falgor fighter, painted in desert camouflage and bearing the distinctive Ace of Spades squadron marking, climbed steadily toward 25,000 feet where American bombers typically appeared on their way to targets in northern Italy. The date was August 2, 1943, and Mantelli commanded the 51st Stormo's most experienced fighter pilots. His personal tally of 17 aerial victories included RAF Spitfires, American P-40 Warhawks, and one consolidated B-24 Liberator claimed over Sicily the previous month. But today brought a different challenge. Reports indicated Lightning fighters would escort the incoming bomber formation. Mantelli had encountered P-38s twice before. The first engagement, in March 1943 over Tunisia, had cost his Squadron 3 aircraft without scoring a single victory. The second, a month later near Pantelleria, ended when Lightning pilots refused combat and climbed away to safety with their bombers intact. Italian fighter tactics, developed against British aircraft operating from short-range bases, proved inadequate against American long-range operations. The Macchi C-202, powered by a license-built Daimler-Benz DB601 engine producing 1,200 horsepower, represented the best fighter in Italian service during 1943. Its maximum speed of 372 miles per hour matched contemporary Spitfire and Hurricane variants. Excellent maneuverability and strong construction made it competitive with most Allied fighters encountered over the Mediterranean. But the P-38 Lightning operated in a different performance category. American intelligence estimated its top speed at 414 miles per hour, 42 miles per hour faster than the Falgor at equivalent altitudes. Climb rate above 20,000 feet exceeded Italian fighters by over 1,000 feet per minute. Range with drop tanks reached 1,200 miles, triple that of the C-202's 400-mile combat radius. More importantly, Lightning pilots had developed tactics that exploited these advantages while avoiding close-range combat where Italian maneuverability might prove decisive. They stayed high and fast, attacked with their concentrated nose armament, then climbed away before Italian pilots could respond. The approach required discipline and training, but it virtually guaranteed mission success while minimizing losses. Capitano Forio Nicola Doglio, Italy's third-ranking ace with 26 confirmed victories, analyzed P-38 operations from a tactical perspective that reflected hard-won combat experience. His conclusions, circulated among Regia Aeronautica fighter units in July 1943, provided sobering assessment of Italian capabilities against American long-range fighters. The enemy aircraft possesses overwhelming advantages in speed, climb rate, and operational range. Their armament concentration exceeds any fighter we have encountered. Most critically, their pilots demonstrate excellent discipline and refuse to engage under unfavorable conditions. Our traditional tactics of close-range maneuvering combat cannot succeed against opponents who control engagement parameters. Italian industry had recognized the need for improved fighters capable of matching American performance, but production limitations and resource shortages delayed development programs. The Macchi C-205 Veltro, equipped with a 1,500 horsepower DB605 engine and improved armament, entered service in February 1943. Its performance approached P-38 capabilities, but only 177 examples reached operational units before Italy's surrender in September. The Fiat G55 Centauro and Reggian Re 2005 Sagittario offered even better performance, with top speeds exceeding 400 miles per hour and heavy cannon armament. But combined production of both types totaled fewer than 300 aircraft a pittance compared to the thousands of P-38s flowing from Lockheed's production lines. Tenente Colonnello Luigi Guinea, credited with 24 aerial victories including several P-38s, developed specialized tactics for engaging Lightning formations. His methods required exceptional pilot skill and perfect timing, but offered Italian fighters their only realistic chance of success. Attack must come from maximum altitude using diving speed advantage. Select isolated aircraft if possible, never engage entire formations. Fire one accurate burst during the initial pass, then continue diving to ground level. Use terrain masking to break visual contact, then climb back to altitude for another attack attempt. Never turn to fight. Never climb to re-engage immediately. The tactics occasionally worked when executed by expert pilots flying well-maintained aircraft, but they demanded fuel reserves and training levels increasingly scarce as the war situation deteriorated. Most encounters ended with Italian fighters breaking off combat after suffering losses while inflicting minimal damage on American formations. On August 2, 1943, Mantelli's encounter with Lightning escorts demonstrated the growing disparity between Italian and American capabilities. His squadron of 12 C-202s intercepted a formation of 36 P-38s protecting 24 B-24 Liberators en route to targets near Genoa. The numerical odds slightly favored the Italians, but performance disparities quickly became apparent. The Lightning formation divided into two groups. Half continued escort duties with the bombers while the other half engaged the Italian fighters. P-38 pilots used their speed advantage to position themselves for attack runs while maintaining altitude superiority. Italian pilots attempted to climb toward the Americans, but Lightning performance above 25,000 feet made interception impossible. The engagement lasted 14 minutes and covered 40 miles of Mediterranean airspace. Mantelli's pilots claimed 3 P-38s destroyed and 2 probably destroyed, while losing 5 of their own aircraft with 3 pilots killed. American records showed 1 Lightning damaged by cannon fire but safely returned to base, while confirming 5 Italian fighters destroyed and 2 damaged. The disparity between claims and actual losses reflected the confusion and stress of high-speed aerial combat, but also revealed Italian pilots' difficulty in assessing damage against well-protected American aircraft. The P-38's twin-engine design provided redundancy that allowed damaged aircraft to return home, while single-engine Italian fighters typically crashed if seriously hit. Post-engagement analysis by Italian intelligence officers identified several factors contributing to their forces' poor showing against American long-range fighters. Pilot training had been reduced due to fuel shortages, leaving many squadron members inadequately prepared for high-altitude combat. Aircraft maintenance standards had declined as spare parts became scarce. Most critically, Italian fighters lacked the performance necessary to engage P-38s on equal terms. By September 1943, when Italy signed the armistice with Allied forces, the Regia Aeronautica had effectively ceased to exist as a combat force. P-38 Lightning operations, along with other American and British aircraft, had systematically destroyed Italian air power through sustained attacks on airfields, aircraft factories, and fuel supplies. The few remaining Italian fighters joined either German forces in the north or Allied air units in the south, ending their role in Axis air operations. The morning whistle at Lockheed's Burbank plant echoed across the San Fernando Valley at 6 a.m., calling 18,000 workers to their stations along the Lightning production line. The date was March 10, 1944, and Plant B-1 hummed with activity as the most complex single-seat fighter in the world took shape from raw aluminum sheets and precision-machined components. Rosalind Palmer clocked in at Station 47, where she had spent the last 18 months installing electrical systems in P-38 forward fuselages. Before the war, she had worked as a telephone operator in downtown Los Angeles. Pearl Harbor changed everything. Lockheed needed skilled workers to build fighters for the war effort, and Palmer learned to read wiring diagrams, solder connections, and route cable harnesses through the Lightning's complex internal structure. "We built 42 Lightnings yesterday," announced shift supervisor Frank Morrison as workers gathered around their stations. "Today's target is 45. Plant B-6 in Nashville is ahead of us by 3 aircraft this week." and that ain't acceptable. The competition between Lockheed's California facility and the new Vultee plant in Tennessee motivated workers on both shifts. Each P-38 that rolled off the production line carried the hopes of American combat pilots flying dangerous missions over hostile territory. Quality control couldn't be compromised for speed, but efficiency improvements could increase output while maintaining Lockheed's exacting standards. Palmer Station received forward fuselage sections from upstream fabrication areas where sheet metal workers had shaped aluminum alloy into the Lightning's distinctive central nacelle. Her job required installing the main electrical harness, 137 separate wires connecting radios, navigation equipment, engine instruments, and weapons controls. Each connection had to be perfect. A single faulty wire could cause system failures that might cost a pilot his life. The work demanded concentration and manual dexterity. Palmer's hands moved with practiced precision, stripping wire insulation, crimping connectors, and routing cables through their designated pathways. Quality inspectors checked every connection against engineering drawings, rejecting any installation that didn't meet specifications. Rejected work meant overtime to fix problems and delays that affected the entire production schedule. Remember, girls, Palmer would tell new workers assigned to her station, every Lightning we build might save an American boy's life somewhere in the Pacific. That boy might be somebody's son, brother, or sweetheart. We can't let him down. The sentiment wasn't mere propaganda. Letters from combat pilots regularly arrived at the factory, describing missions where Lightning performance made the difference between success and failure, life and death. Workers posted these letters on bulletin boards throughout the plant, constant reminders of their work's importance. Production engineering at Lockheed represented the cutting edge of American manufacturing technology. Kelly Johnson's design team had created detailed drawings for every component, but translating those drawings into efficient production processes required months of careful planning and tooling development. The Lightning's complex shape demanded specialized manufacturing techniques not used in conventional aircraft production. The wing center section, containing landing gear wells and interconnected control systems, required precision machining of thick aluminum forgings. Traditional metal working tools couldn't achieve the necessary tolerances, so Lockheed invested in advanced machine tools capable of holding dimensions within plus or minus 0.02 of an inch. The investment paid dividends in reduced assembly time and improved component interchangeability. Engine installation presented unique challenges due to the P-38's twin power plant configuration. Each Allison V-1710 engine weighed 1,400 pounds and required precise alignment with its associated propeller, turbo supercharger, and cooling systems. Assembly workers used overhead cranes and specialized jigs to position engines accurately while connecting multiple mechanical and electrical interfaces. Helen Rodriguez supervised the engine installation bay where 12 P-38s moved through the process simultaneously. Her crew of 60 mechanics could install both engines in a Lightning in 4 hours and 37 minutes, a time that had steadily improved since production began in 1941. The secret is preparation, Rodriguez explained to visiting Army Air Forces officers. Every tool in its proper place, every connection checked twice, every mechanic trained to do his job without wasted motion. We treat each Lightning like it's going to fly combat missions tomorrow, because it probably is. Quality control extended beyond individual component installation to comprehensive system testing. Each completed P-38 underwent ground runs that verified engine operation, checked flight control response, and tested all electrical systems. Test pilots then flew evaluation flights to confirm airworthiness before aircraft were accepted by Army Air Forces representatives. Test pilot Milo Burcham, a former Lockheed engineer who had flown Lightning prototypes since 1939, conducted acceptance flights for production aircraft. His logbook showed over 3,000 Lightning flights, more than any other pilot. His detailed reports identified problems that might not appear during ground testing but could cause failures in combat conditions. Every P-38 has its own personality, Burcham observed after completing his daily flight schedule. Some are smooth as silk from the first flight. Others need adjustments to reach their full potential. Our job is making sure each aircraft leaves here performing better than the specifications require. production bottlenecks shifted as the war progressed and output increased. Early problems centered on engine deliveries from Allison, which struggled to meet demand from multiple aircraft programs. By 1943, engine supplies had stabilized, but shortages of specialized materials, high-grade aluminum alloys, precision ball bearings, radio equipment created new delays. The most persistent challenge involved skilled labor shortages. The P-38's complexity demanded workers with training and experience not required for simpler aircraft. Lockheed established extensive apprenticeship programs that taught metal working, electrical installation, and precision assembly techniques. But training new workers took months, and experienced personnel were constantly recruited by other defense contractors offering higher wages. Competition for workers intensified as aircraft production expanded throughout Southern California. Douglas Aircraft built thousands of transport planes and dive bombers. North American Aviation produced training aircraft and the revolutionary P-51 Mustang fighter. Consolidated Vultee manufactured heavy bombers and flying boats. Each company needed skilled workers, and labor mobility between plants became commonplace. Lockheed responded with competitive wages, comprehensive benefits, and working conditions designed to attract and retain the best personnel. The company provided on-site medical facilities, subsidized cafeterias, and transportation services for workers living in distant communities. Housing was built near the plant for employees relocating from other states to work in aircraft production. By late 1944, Lockheed's combined facilities were producing over 200 P-38s per month, a rate that would have seemed impossible when production began 3 years earlier. The achievement reflected systematic improvements in manufacturing processes, worker training, and supply chain management that transformed aircraft production from craft industry to mass production. The final P-38 Lightning, serial number 44-53254, rolled off the Burbank production line on August 23, 1945, just days after Japan's surrender ended World War II. Total production reached 10,037 aircraft, making the Lightning one of the most successful fighter programs in aviation history. Workers gathered around the final aircraft for ceremony and photographs that captured the end of an extraordinary production effort. Palmer, Rodriguez, Morrison, and thousands of their colleagues had built fighters that helped win the war in the Pacific. Their work embodied American industrial capacity and technological innovation that proved decisive in global conflict. The Coral Sea stretched endlessly below Lieutenant Richard Bong's P-38F Lightning as he led red flight toward the Japanese airfield complex at La, New Guinea. The date was July 26, 1943, and morning thermals were already building towering cumulus clouds over the Owen Stanley Mountains. Intelligence reports indicated heavy Japanese fighter activity around La, where enemy reinforcements continued arriving despite sustained Allied bombing campaigns. Bong's aircraft, serial number 42-12701, carried the standard armament package 4 Browning M250 caliber machine guns with 500 rounds per gun, plus 1 Hispano-Suiza HS-404 20mm cannon with 150 explosive shells. Drop tanks extended his range to over 1,100 miles, enough to reach La from the Allied base at Port Moresby with adequate reserves for 30 minutes of combat and emergency fuel for the return flight. At 22,000 feet, Bong spotted them first, a formation of 20 Japanese fighters climbing from the La airfield complex toward an altitude that would allow interception of expected Allied bomber formations. The mix included A-6M0 fighters and Ki-43 Oscar fighters, both types capable of exceptional maneuverability but limited in high-altitude performance compared to turbo-supercharged P-38s. Bandits, 2 o'clock high, Angels 25. Bong transmitted to his wingman and the 2 other P-38s in his flight. Looks like 20-plus climbing toward us. Drop tanks on my mark. The tactical situation favored the Americans despite numerical disadvantage. Bong's flight held altitude superiority and could choose engagement timing. Japanese pilots, committed to their climb profile, couldn't easily maneuver to avoid attack. Most importantly, the P-38's speed advantage allowed them to control engagement duration, attacking when conditions favored victory, disengaging when they didn't. Bong had learned these lessons through 15 months of combat experience and careful study of Japanese fighter capabilities. His current tally of 14 confirmed victories reflected not just exceptional pilot skill but also tactical discipline that kept him alive while lesser pilots died in unnecessary fights. General Kenny had identified Bong as potential ace material and provided advanced training in aerial gunnery and combat tactics. Drop tanks. Now, Bong commanded, pulling the external fuel tank release. 600 gallons of aviation gasoline fell away, lightening his aircraft by 4,000 pounds and improving power-to-weight ratio for combat maneuvering. The other P-38s followed suit, their discarded tanks tumbling toward the jungle far below. The attack developed with textbook precision. Bong led the formation in a high-speed diving pass through the Japanese formation, using superior altitude and acceleration to achieve favorable firing positions before enemy pilots could react. His chosen target, a zero at the formation's right edge, filled his gun sight at 400 yards range. The Browning machine guns and Hispano cannon created a devastating cone of destruction. Armor-piercing incendiary 50 caliber bullets perforated the Zero's engine cowling and wing roots, while 20mm explosive shells detonated against fuel tanks and control surfaces. The Japanese fighter erupted in flames and fell away, its pilot's escape attempt thwarted by flames filling the cockpit. Bong's Lightning flashed through the Japanese formation at over 400 miles per hour, too fast for enemy fighters to track and engage. Behind him, the other P-38s followed the same attack profile, each pilot selecting individual targets and firing accurate bursts during brief engagement windows. Within 30 seconds, four Japanese fighters were falling toward the jungle in various stages of destruction. But the engagement was far from over. The surviving Japanese pilots, though momentarily disrupted, began reforming and climbing to engage the P-38s. Their tactical response revealed improved training and better understanding of Lightning capabilities compared to earlier encounters. Instead of attempting turning combat, they used climbing attacks and diving escapes to minimize exposure to American firepower. Bong pulled into a chandelle maneuver, trading airspeed for altitude while positioning his flight for another attack run. The Lightning's excellent high-altitude performance allowed sustained combat at 25,000 feet where most Japanese fighters struggled for power. At this altitude, the P-38's turbo-supercharged engines delivered maximum output while enemy radial engines lost power due to inadequate supercharging. "Watch the ones at 2 o'clock, Bong warned his wingman. 3 zeros in a climbing left turn. They're trying to get behind us." The Japanese pilots were learning. Instead of accepting combat at altitudes that favored the P-38s, they attempted to force the Americans into lower altitude engagements where maneuverability might prove decisive. The tactic required patience and fuel reserves, both increasingly scarce commodities for Japanese forces operating from forward bases with limited logistical support. Bong's second attack run targeted a lone Oscar that had separated from the main formation during the initial engagement. The Japanese pilot flew a series of violent evasive maneuvers, barrel rolls, split S-turns, abrupt climbs and dives trying to prevent the P-38 from achieving a stable firing position. But the Lightning's superior speed allowed Bong to match every maneuver while gradually closing range. At 200 yards, Bong fired a 3-second burst that walked 50 caliber bullets from the Oscar's wing root to its engine cowling. The Japanese fighter shuddered under multiple impacts, then rolled inverted and dove vertically toward the ground. No parachute appeared. The pilot was either killed by gunfire or incapacitated by battle damage. 2 victories in 10 minutes of combat. But Bong had no time to celebrate. His fuel gauge showed 1,500 pounds, remaining enough for another 20 minutes of combat before reserves dropped to the level required for safe return to Port Moresby. Japanese reinforcements were climbing from La and nearby Wewak, drawn by radio reports of the ongoing air battle. 15 more bandits, 6 o'clock low, climbing fast, reported his wingman. Looks like Zeros and Oscars mixed formation. The reinforcements changed tactical dynamics. Bong's flight now faced 30-plus Japanese fighters with multiple aircraft types and varying performance capabilities. The Americans still held altitude advantage, but numerical odds had shifted dramatically. Continued combat risked losses that would negate the morning's successes. Instead, Bong demonstrated the tactical discipline that made him one of the Pacific Theater's most successful fighter pilots. Rather than accepting unfavorable engagement conditions, he led his flight in a climbing turn toward the northeast, using the P-38's superior high-altitude performance to open distance from pursuing Japanese fighters. "We're going home," he announced. 2 confirmed, maybe 3 more damaged. "Good work, everybody." The decision reflected mature judgment gained through combat experience. Earlier in his career, Bong might have stayed to fight regardless of odds. But successful fighter pilots learned when to engage and when to disengage. Surviving veteran pilots were more valuable than dead heroes, and successful missions required bringing aircraft and pilots home for future operations. The return flight to Port Moresby provided opportunity for post-engagement analysis. Bong's flight had engaged superior numbers and achieved favorable exchange rates while suffering no losses. The tactic's high-altitude approach, diving attacks, refusal to accept turning combat had worked exactly as trained. Japanese pilot quality appeared improved compared to earlier encounters, but aircraft performance limitations prevented effective response to disciplined P-38 operations. Ground debriefing confirmed 2 Japanese fighters destroyed and 2 probably destroyed, bringing Bong's total to 16 confirmed victories. The achievement earned him promotion to first lieutenant and consideration for advanced gunnery training in the United States. More importantly, it demonstrated tactical principles that other Lightning pilots could adopt to improve their own combat effectiveness. By evening, intelligence reports confirmed the day's results. American pilots had claimed 12 Japanese aircraft destroyed for the loss of 1 P-38 pilot rescued by Catalina flying boat after successful water landing near Salamaua. The exchange rate reflected growing American air superiority based on better aircraft, improved pilot training, and tactical innovations developed through continuous combat experience. That night, Bong wrote to his parents in Wisconsin, describing the day's mission in terms that revealed both the intensity of aerial combat and his matter-of-fact approach to survival. "Had a good day today. Shot down 2 sure ones and maybe got a 3rd. The Japs are getting better, but our planes are still faster and hit harder. I'm learning to pick my fights carefully, no point in taking unnecessary chances when smart tactics work better. The boys here are doing fine work, and we're all looking forward to getting this thing finished, so we can come home." The letter captured the pragmatic professionalism that characterized successful fighter pilots. Bong had learned to view aerial combat as problem-solving under extreme conditions rather than glorious adventure. The approach would carry him through 2 more years of combat operations and 34 additional victories. The Macchi Castoldi MC-200 fighter touched down on the grass runway at Decimo Manu Airfield, Sardinia, with its engine coughing and trailing smoke from damaged cylinders. Tenente Guido Tondi shut down the radial engine and climbed stiffly from the cramped cockpit, his flight suit stained with hydraulic fluid and cordite residue from the morning's combat mission over the Tyrrhenian Sea. It was August 15, 1943, and the 24-year-old pilot had just survived his most challenging engagement since joining the Regia Aeronautica 3 years earlier. His encounter with a formation of American P-38 Lightning fighters had cost his Squadron 2 aircraft while inflicting minimal damage on the enemy formation. The tactical lesson was becoming painfully clear: Italian fighters could no longer compete effectively against the latest American aircraft entering Mediterranean combat. But today brought an unexpected opportunity. Sitting on the parking ramp beside maintenance hangars was an intact P-38F Lightning, serial number 41-2087, that had made an emergency landing at Decimo Manu 3 days earlier. The American pilot, apparently disoriented by weather and low on fuel, had mistaken the Italian airfield for an Allied base in North Africa. He was now a prisoner of war, but his aircraft provided Italian intelligence with their first detailed examination of America's most advanced fighter. Tondi approached the Lightning with professional curiosity mixed with admiration for its technological sophistication. The twin-boom configuration looked strange compared to conventional fighters, but close inspection revealed elegant engineering solutions to complex aerodynamic and structural challenges. Everything about the aircraft suggested careful design and precision manufacturing far beyond Italian production capabilities. "Impressive machine," commented Maggiore Paolo Tarantino, commanding officer of the 23rd Fighter Group. "Our technical staff has been examining it for 3 days. The performance estimates are remarkable: over 650 kilometers per hour at altitude, range exceeding 1,800 kilometers with external tanks, ceiling above 12,000 meters. No wonder their pilots can dictate engagement terms. Italian aircraft designers had studied P-38 specifications through intelligence reports and captured documentation, but physical examination revealed details not apparent from technical drawings. The quality of materials, precision of manufacturing, and sophistication of systems impressed even veteran maintenance personnel accustomed to working on advanced German aircraft. The engines particularly caught Italian attention. Each Allison V-17-10 51 power plant produced 1,300 horsepower through turbo supercharging systems that maintained sea-level performance to 25,000 feet. Italian engines of comparable displacement managed 800 to 900 horsepower without sophisticated supercharging, limiting high-altitude performance where most combat occurred. More striking was the Lightning's armament installation. For Browning 50 caliber machine guns and one Hispano 20mm cannon concentrated in the nose created devastating firepower density impossible to achieve with wing-mounted weapons. Italian fighters typically carried two 12.7mm machine guns and perhaps two 7.7mm guns, adequate against lightly protected aircraft but insufficient for heavily armored American bombers. They designed this aircraft for a different kind of war, observed Capitano Forio Nicolò Doglio during his inspection tour. Long-range operations, high-altitude combat, heavy bomber escort. Our fighters were optimized for short-range interception and dogfighting. The tactical environment has changed faster than our aircraft development programs could adapt. Italian intelligence officers questioned the captured American pilot extensively, seeking insights into P-38 operational procedures and tactical employment. The pilot, Lieutenant James Morrison of the 82nd Fighter Group, provided only name, rank, and serial number as required by Geneva Convention protocols. But his aircraft told the story his silence concealed. Navigation equipment included radio compass, automatic direction finder, and celestial navigation aids that allowed long-range missions over featureless ocean expanses. Communication radios operated on multiple frequencies with encryption capabilities. Engine instruments provided precise monitoring of complex turbo-supercharged power plants. Every system reflected advanced technology and careful engineering integration. Combat equipment impressed Italian observers even more. Reflector gun sights provided precise aiming references for the concentrated nose armament. Armor protection shielded the pilot and critical systems from enemy fire. Self-sealing fuel tanks prevented catastrophic fires when punctured by bullets. The aircraft could absorb battle damage that would destroy most Italian fighters. After a week of detailed examination, Italian engineers submitted comprehensive reports to the Air Ministry in Rome. Their conclusions acknowledged American technological superiority, while identifying specific areas where Italian aircraft fell short of contemporary combat requirements. The enemy aircraft represents systematic engineering approach to long-range fighter operations. Every component reflects careful design optimization for specific mission requirements. Performance capabilities exceed our best fighters in all categories except turning radius at low altitude. Most critically, the aircraft is designed for production in large quantities while maintaining high-quality standards, but the report also identified potential vulnerabilities that experienced pilots might exploit. The P-38's large size created higher wing loading than single-engine fighters, reducing maneuverability in turning combat. Complex systems required extensive maintenance support not always available at forward airfields. Twin-engine configuration, while providing redundancy and range, also created larger target area and increased vulnerability to battle damage. Tenente Tondi received permission to fly the captured Lightning under close supervision from Italian test pilots familiar with its systems. The experience provided first-hand appreciation for American engineering achievement and tactical capabilities that reports couldn't fully convey. Acceleration is tremendous, Tondi noted after his first flight. Climb rate above 6,000 meters exceeds anything I have flown. Visibility from the cockpit is excellent in all directions. Control response is positive but requires adjustment from single-engine techniques. Most impressive is the smooth operation. Everything works as designed with minimum pilot workload. The flight also revealed characteristics that might favor experienced Italian pilots under proper conditions. Roll rate, while adequate, didn't match the best single-engine fighters. Initial acceleration from low airspeeds was modest due to the aircraft's weight and wing loading. Fuel consumption at combat power settings limited engagement duration despite large internal capacity. This aircraft can be defeated, Tondi concluded in his detailed report. But victory requires perfect execution of attack runs that exploit our advantages while avoiding their strengths. The engagement window is very narrow, and any mistake allows them to escape or counterattack with their superior firepower. The captured P-38 provided valuable intelligence, but it also demonstrated the growing technological gap between American and Axis aircraft production. Italian industry lacked the materials, manufacturing capability, and engineering resources to produce fighters matching Lightning performance. Even if designs existed, production capacity couldn't meet wartime demand for large numbers of advanced aircraft. In September 1943, Tenente Tondi flew the captured P-38F on several combat missions against Allied formations approaching Italian targets. His unique position Italian pilot flying American aircraft provided insights unavailable to either side's intelligence services. The experience confirmed Lightning superiority while demonstrating tactical methods that might allow inferior aircraft to achieve occasional success. On August 11th, Tondi intercepted a formation of B-24 Liberator bombers escorted by P-38 fighters over the Tyrrhenian Sea. Flying the captured Lightning in German markings to avoid friendly fire incidents, he approached the formation from below and behind, using the P-38's performance to match the bomber's speed and altitude. His attack run destroyed one B-24 with a concentrated burst from all 5 guns, demonstrating the Lightning's devastating firepower when properly employed. But the engagement also attracted attention from escort fighters, forcing Tondi to use maximum performance to escape pursuing P-38s flown by pilots more experienced with the aircraft's capabilities. Ironic situation, Tondi reflected after landing. Flying their own aircraft against them, I confirmed everything we learned from examination and testing. The P-38 Lightning is a superior fighter that can dominate combat when properly flown. Our captured example might achieve occasional victories through surprise, but systematic success requires aircraft designed for current combat conditions. By October 1943, advancing Allied forces threatened Italian airfields, forcing evacuation of the captured P-38 to bases in northern Italy. The aircraft continued flying occasional missions until fuel shortages and maintenance problems grounded it permanently in early 1944. Its brief combat career provided valuable intelligence while demonstrating the overwhelming advantages American industry had achieved in fighter aircraft development. The captured Lightning remained at Italian airfields until war's end, a tangible symbol of American technological superiority that helped decide the Mediterranean campaign's outcome. Major Thomas Buchanan Maguire Jr. pulled his P-38L Lightning into a climbing turn and scanned the sky over Luzon for Japanese fighters reported in the area. The date was January 7, 1945, and Maguire's current tally of 38 confirmed victories made him America's second-ranking ace, just 2 kills behind Richard Bong's record of 40. Today's mission offered another opportunity to equal or surpass that milestone. Maguire's aircraft, nicknamed Pudgy V, after his wife Marilyn's childhood nickname, carried the standard late war armament package with improved reliability modifications. 4 and M350 caliber machine guns provided 6,300 rounds per minute combined fire rate, while a single and M2 20mm cannon delivered high explosive punch at 450 rounds per minute. The concentration of firepower in the Lightning's nose made it devastatingly effective against any aircraft unfortunate enough to cross its path. At 24 years old, Maguire was 3 years younger than Bong but equally aggressive in seeking combat opportunities. His rapid accumulation of victories, 38 kills in just 18 months of combat operations, reflected exceptional pilot skill, combined with tactical intelligence that kept him alive in the Pacific's most dangerous air battles. Like Bong, he had learned to use the P-38's performance advantages while avoiding its few vulnerabilities. Bandits, 1 o'clock low, Angels 15. Transmitted Lieutenant Douglas Throp, Maguire's wingman. Looks like 4 zeros heading north toward Clark Field. The tactical situation appeared favorable. Maguire's flight of 4 P-38s held altitude advantage and could choose engagement timing. The Japanese fighters, apparently unaware of American presence, continued northward at cruising speed without defensive maneuvering. Standard Lightning tactics called for high-speed diving attacks that used superior altitude and acceleration to achieve killing positions before enemy pilots could react. But Maguire made a decision that violated every tactical principle General Kenny had drilled into his Lightning pilots. Instead of maintaining altitude advantage for diving attacks, he pushed his aircraft into a steep dive that built dangerous airspeed while closing rapidly on the Japanese formation. His apparent goal was to engage in turning combat where exceptional pilot skill might overcome aircraft performance limitations. "Major, you're going too fast," warned Captain Edwin Weaver, flying as element leader in the four-plane formation. "Pull up and try another approach." Maguire ignored the advice and pressed his attack. At 450 miles per hour indicated airspeed, his P-38L was approaching compressibility limits that could cause control problems. The Lightning's dive flaps, designed to prevent such situations, had been disconnected at Maguire's personal request because he believed they reduced his aircraft's performance in certain combat situations. The first Japanese fighter, a Mitsubishi A6M50 flown by an experienced pilot, detected the approaching threat and pulled into a tight left turn that forced Maguire to match the maneuver or lose his firing opportunity. The P-38's high speed and heavy weight made tight turning impossible at low altitude, but Maguire attempted the maneuver anyway. Physics proved inexorable. The Lightning's left wing stalled at maximum G-loading, causing the aircraft to snap roll inverted and dive toward the jungle below. At 1,500 feet altitude, Maguire had insufficient altitude to recover from the resulting spin. His aircraft crashed into the Philippine jungle, killing instantly the pilot who had come within 2 victories of equaling America's top ace. The loss sent shock waves through the 5th Air Force and the Lightning community specifically. Maguire had been scheduled for rotation to the United States after completing his current tour. His exceptional combat record and analytical approach to aerial tactics made him a valuable resource for training replacement pilots. Most importantly, his death demonstrated that even the most skilled pilots could not violate basic tactical principles and survive. Thomas Maguire's path to ace status had paralleled Richard Bong's in many respects, but their personalities and approaches to combat differed significantly. While Bong was methodical and calculating, Maguire was aggressive and intuitive. Both men understood P-38 capabilities thoroughly, but Maguire was more willing to push aircraft and pilot to their limits in pursuit of victory. Born in Ridgewood, New Jersey, on August 1, 1920, Maguire had grown up in comfortable middle-class circumstances that provided educational opportunities and exposure to aviation through his father's business connections. His family moved to Sebring, Florida, when he was 12, where warm weather and clear skies offered ideal conditions for developing interest in flying. Georgia Institute of Technology provided engineering education that gave Maguire technical understanding of aircraft systems and aerodynamics. Unlike many fighter pilots who learned through experience and intuition, Maguire could analyze performance characteristics mathematically and develop tactics based on calculated advantages. His college background in physics and mathematics proved invaluable when transitioning to the P-38's complex systems. Aviation cadet training at Maxwell Field, Alabama, revealed exceptional flying ability and competitive drive that set Maguire apart from his classmates. Instructors noted his aggressive approach to aerial gunnery and his willingness to take calculated risks that other pilots avoided. His final training report predicted great success in combat operations, but also warned about tendencies toward overconfidence that might prove dangerous. Lieutenant Maguire joined the 431st Fighter Squadron, 475th Fighter Group, in August 1943 and flew his first combat mission over Wewak, New Guinea, on August 18. His initial victory, a Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar destroyed during a low-altitude engagement, established patterns that would characterize his entire combat career. He preferred close-range attacks that required precise flying but delivered devastating results when properly executed. The 475th Fighter Group, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Charles MacDonald, operated as an elite Lightning unit composed of experienced pilots and well-maintained aircraft. The group's tactical philosophy emphasized aggressive engagement of enemy aircraft while maintaining the disciplined approach necessary for P-38 success. Maguire thrived in this environment, where his competitive nature found outlet in pursuit of aerial victories. His second victory came 3 days after his first, when he shot down a Kawasaki Ki-61 Tony fighter during escort duty for B-25 Mitchell bombers attacking Japanese airfields near Wewak. The engagement demonstrated Maguire's developing tactical sense and his ability to coordinate with other Lightning pilots in complex air battles involving dozens of aircraft. By October 15, 1943, Maguire had achieved ace status with 5 confirmed victories. His rapid success attracted attention from senior commanders looking for pilots capable of training replacements and developing improved tactics. But Maguire preferred combat flying to instructional duties and repeatedly requested assignment to operational squadrons where he could continue engaging enemy aircraft. The competition between Maguire and Bong for highest victory totals provided motivation for both pilots while generating publicity that boosted home front morale. Newspapers followed their progress closely, creating public interest in individual pilot achievements that personalized the larger war effort. The rivalry remained friendly. Both men respected each other's skills and shared tactical information that improved overall Lightning effectiveness. Maguire's aggressive approach to combat generated impressive victory totals, but also created risks that more conservative pilots avoided. His willingness to engage superior numbers and pursue damaged aircraft into dangerous situations resulted in several forced landings and narrow escapes from enemy territory. His aircraft showed battle damage after most missions, evidence of his close-range engagement preferences. Maguire fights every battle like it's personal, observed Major MacDonald after watching his subordinate attack a formation of 15 Japanese fighters single-handedly. He has exceptional skill and perfect timing, but he takes chances that would kill most pilots. Someday those chances might catch up with him. The prediction proved accurate on January 7, 1945, when Maguire's attempt to engage in low-altitude turning combat cost him his life, just 2 victories short of equaling Bong's record. His death eliminated the only American pilot likely to surpass Bong's total, ensuring that the Wisconsin farm boy would remain America's ace of aces permanently. Maguire's final victory tally of 38 confirmed kills made him the second highest-scoring American ace of World War II. His posthumous Medal of Honor citation recognized conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty during combat operations over Luzon. The award acknowledged not just his individual achievements but his contribution to developing tactics that improved Lightning effectiveness throughout the Pacific theater. The contrasting fates of America's 2 leading aces illustrated different approaches to surviving aerial combat. Bong's methodical tactics and strict adherence to proven principles kept him alive through 2 years of intensive operations. Maguire's aggressive pursuit of victory achieved spectacular short-term results, but ultimately led to a fatal mistake that could have been avoided through greater tactical discipline. Both men demonstrated the P-38 Lightning's potential in the hands of exceptional pilots. Their combined 78 victories represented the culmination of American fighter development, pilot training, and tactical innovation that had transformed air combat in the Pacific theater. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, commander of the combined fleet and architect of the Pearl Harbor attack, settled into his seat aboard the Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber as it prepared for departure from Rabaul. The date was April 18, 1943, and Japan's most important naval commander was beginning an inspection tour designed to boost morale at forward bases throughout the Solomon Islands. The itinerary, transmitted by encrypted radio from Tokyo to regional commanders, detailed precise departure and arrival times for each stop on Yamamoto's tour. At Balale Airfield, 800 miles southeast of Rabaul, garrison personnel had prepared for the Admiral's 1105 A.M. arrival with honor guards and ceremonial displays intended to demonstrate continuing Japanese determination despite recent setbacks at Guadalcanal. But the encrypted transmission had been intercepted and decoded by American cryptanalysts at Pearl Harbor. Within hours of its receipt, Admiral Chester Nimitz knew exactly when and where Japan's most valuable military leader would be vulnerable to attack. The intelligence windfall offered an unprecedented opportunity to eliminate the strategic mind behind Japan's early war successes. Nimitz faced a difficult decision. Attacking Yamamoto's aircraft would certainly alert Japanese intelligence that their codes had been compromised, potentially closing off future intelligence sources. But the chance to eliminate Japan's most capable fleet commander might justify the risk. After consultation with Washington, Nimitz authorized the mission with explicit instructions that it must appear to be chance encounter rather than planned interception. Planning responsibility fell to Major John Mitchell, operations officer for the 339th Fighter Squadron based on Guadalcanal. His unit operated P-38 Lightning fighters, the only American aircraft with sufficient range to intercept Yamamoto's flight and return safely to Allied bases. The mission would require precise navigation over 400 miles of open ocean, split-second timing, and perfect execution under combat conditions. Mitchell's analysis revealed the mission's complexity. Yamamoto's flight would depart Rabaul at 6 a.m., flying southeast toward Balhail at 200 knots indicated airspeed. The bomber formation would include 2 G-4M Betty aircraft carrying the admiral and his staff, escorted by 6 A-6M0 fighters providing protection against possible Allied interception. To avoid detection by Japanese radar and Coast Watcher networks, the P-38s would have to fly at wave-top altitude for most of the journey, then climb rapidly for the final interception. Navigation over featureless ocean demanded precise dead reckoning calculations with no margin for error. Fuel consumption at high power settings would leave minimal reserves for combat and return flight. "This is a one-shot deal," Mitchell briefed his pilots on the evening of April 17th. "We get one chance to nail the son of a bitch who planned Pearl Harbor. Miss the interception, and we probably won't have fuel to try again. Get shot down, and the Navy won't be able to mount a rescue mission 800 miles from home." 18 P-38GS launched from Henderson Field at 7:10 a.m. on April 18th, each aircraft carrying maximum fuel load and reduced ammunition to extend range. Mitchell led the formation in a wide arc around Japanese-controlled islands, maintaining radio silence while following compass headings calculated to intercept Yamamoto's flight over Bougainville's southern coast. The flight profile demanded exceptional pilot skill and aircraft reliability. For most of the journey, the Lightnings flew less than 50 feet above the ocean surface, using ground effect to improve fuel efficiency while remaining below Japanese radar coverage. Navigation depended entirely on dead reckoning compass headings, airspeed calculations, and elapsed time measurements that left no room for error. At 9:34 a.m., Mitchell began his formation's climb toward interception altitude. The P-38s rose from sea level to 16,000 feet in 5 minutes, their turbo-supercharged engines providing maximum power as they approached the calculated interception point. Below them, Bougainville's jungle-covered mountains rose steeply from coastal swamps toward volcanic peaks shrouded in tropical clouds. "Bandits, 11 o'clock, slightly high," transmitted Captain Thomas Lynch, flying as element leader in Mitchell's formation. 2 bombers with escort, heading southeast. Yamamoto's flight appeared exactly where intelligence calculations had predicted, validation of American cryptanalytic capabilities and mission planning precision. The Betty bombers flew in loose formation at 16,000 feet, their 6-0 escorts weaving back and forth in standard protection patterns. None of the Japanese aircraft showed awareness of approaching P-38s. Mitchell divided his formation according to pre-brief tactical plan. For P-38s would attack the bomber formation while the remaining 14 engaged escort fighters and provided top cover against possible Japanese reinforcements. The plan required perfect timing and coordination to succeed against alert enemy pilots flying over their own territory. "Attack formation. Execute," Mitchell commanded as his Lightnings dove toward their targets. The next 2 minutes changed the course of Pacific War strategy. Lanfear's P-38 closed rapidly on the lead Betty bomber carrying Yamamoto, while Lieutenant Rex Barber attacked the second bomber from a different angle. The concentration of multiple Lightning attacks overwhelmed Japanese defensive capabilities and achieved total surprise. Lanfear's guns ripped into the Betty's right engine and wing root, setting fuel tanks ablaze and severing control cables. The bomber rolled into a steep dive and crashed into the jungle below, killing all aboard including Admiral Yamamoto. Barber's target suffered similar damage and crashed into the ocean off Bougainville's coast with no survivors. The escort fighters, caught by surprise and outnumbered, managed to shoot down one P-38 before the remaining Lightnings climbed away and headed for home. The engagement lasted less than 3 minutes, but its strategic consequences would reverberate throughout the remainder of the Pacific War. Japan had lost its most capable naval strategist and the architect of early war victories that had brought the empire to the peak of its territorial expansion. Yamamoto's death created command confusion and strategic uncertainty at the highest levels of Japanese military leadership. Perhaps most importantly, it demonstrated that no Japanese leader, regardless of position or importance, was safe from American reach. The return flight tested P-38 reliability and pilot endurance as fuel levels dropped steadily during the 800-mile journey home. Several Lightnings landed at Henderson Field with tanks showing empty, their engines windmilling to a stop as they rolled off the runway. The mission had pushed aircraft and pilots to their absolute limits, but the results justified every risk. Congratulations to you and Major Mitchell and his hunters, Admiral William Bull Halsey radioed from his South Pacific headquarters. Sounds as though one of the ducks in their bag was a peacock. Post-mission analysis revealed the operation's significance beyond immediate tactical results. The successful interception demonstrated American intelligence capabilities, strategic reach, and operational competence that Japanese leaders had underestimated. More importantly, it eliminated Japan's most competent military strategist at a crucial phase of the Pacific campaign. Japanese reaction to Yamamoto's death reflected both grief and strategic confusion. The admiral's funeral became a major state ceremony, but his replacement lacked both his strategic vision and his influence with senior political leaders. Japanese naval operations after April 1943 showed less coordination and tactical innovation than had characterized earlier campaigns under Yamamoto's leadership. American morale received tremendous boost from news that the architect of Pearl Harbor had been eliminated by Army Air Forces fighters. The mission demonstrated that technological advantages, long-range aircraft, advanced navigation equipment, and superior intelligence capabilities could achieve strategic objectives impossible through conventional military operations. The P-38 Lightning had proven its value as more than just an air superiority fighter. Its exceptional range, reliable twin-engine design, and concentrated firepower made it uniquely capable of missions like the Yamamoto intercept that required precision execution under demanding conditions. No other American fighter in 1943 possessed the performance characteristics necessary for such operations. Lieutenant Barber and Captain Lanfear both claimed credit for shooting down Yamamoto's aircraft, a controversy that persisted for decades after the war ended. But the mission's success belonged to the entire formation: pilots, aircraft, intelligence personnel, and mission planners who had combined their capabilities to achieve one of the war's most significant single operations. The Yamamoto intercept established the P-38 Lightning's reputation as the premier long-range fighter in American service and validated tactical concepts that would influence fighter operations throughout the remainder of the Pacific War. Deep in the engineering laboratories of the Allison Engine Company in Indianapolis, Indiana, Chief Engineer Ronald Hazen examined performance charts that showed their V-1710 power plant producing 1,425 horsepower at 25,000 feet altitude. The date was March 22, 1943, and American fighter aircraft demanded engines capable of maximum power at high altitudes where most combat occurred. The V-1710's turbo supercharging system represented the most advanced aircraft engine technology available in 1943. Unlike conventional superchargers driven by engine crankshafts, the turbo supercharger used exhaust gas energy to spin a turbine that compressed intake air to sea-level density even at extreme altitudes. The system maintained full engine power at altitudes where naturally aspirated engines lost 30 to 40% of their output. Hazen's design team had solved engineering problems that had defeated earlier attempts at reliable turbo supercharging. Temperature control prevented exhaust gases from melting turbine blades. Pressure regulation maintained consistent boost levels across varying throttle settings. Lubrication systems provided adequate oil flow to high-speed bearings operating under extreme conditions. Each component required precision manufacturing and careful quality control to achieve acceptable reliability. The P-38 installation presents unique challenges, Hazen explained to visiting Army Air Forces engineers. 2 engines operating independently but requiring identical performance characteristics. Turbo supercharger systems that must function reliably under combat conditions. Control systems that allow pilots to manage complex power plants without excessive workload. The V-1710's 12-cylinder, liquid-cooled design produced smooth power delivery ideal for fighter aircraft applications. Displacement of 1,700 cubic inches provided adequate power output while maintaining reasonable weight and size constraints. The inverted V-cylinder arrangement lowered the engine's center of gravity and provided better pilot visibility compared to upright configurations. But the engine's real advantage lay in its turbo supercharging system's ability to maintain power at high altitudes. At 25,000 feet, where combat increasingly occurred as the war progressed, a turbo-supercharged V-1710 produced nearly full-rated power while enemy radial engines lost significant output due to thin air. The advantage proved decisive in air-to-air combat where superior climbing ability and high-altitude speed determined engagement outcomes. Manufacturing the V-1710 required precision machining and assembly techniques that pushed American industrial capabilities to their limits. Each engine contained over 8,000 individual parts, many manufactured to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. Crankshafts required multiple precision grinding operations. Cylinder heads demanded complex casting and machining processes. Turbo supercharger components needed exotic materials capable of withstanding extreme temperatures and pressures. Production bottlenecks centered on skilled labor shortages and specialized materials availability. The V-1710's complex design required assembly workers with extensive training and experience. Critical components, high-grade steel alloys, precision ball bearings, electronic ignition systems competed with other defense programs for limited supplies. Quality control procedures demanded comprehensive testing that identified defects before engines reached combat units. Allison's Indianapolis facility employed over 45,000 workers at peak production, manufacturing engines for multiple aircraft programs simultaneously. The P-38 Lightning consumed 2 engines per aircraft, doubling demand compared to single-engine fighters. B-25 Mitchell medium bombers used the same basic power plant, though without turbo supercharging systems. P-40 Warhawk fighters operated simplified versions optimized for low-altitude performance. Engine reliability in combat conditions became critical as P-38s deployed to remote airfields with limited maintenance facilities. The V-1710's liquid cooling system, while providing efficient heat dissipation, created vulnerability to battle damage that could cause rapid engine failure. Glycol coolant leaks, radiator damage, or thermostat failures could disable engines within minutes. Maintenance procedures required trained mechanics and adequate spare parts supplies not always available at forward bases. Technical Sergeant William Morrison, crew chief for the 475th Fighter Group operating from primitive airstrips in New Guinea, developed field maintenance procedures that kept P-38s operational under impossible conditions. His innovations included emergency cooling system repairs, improvised parts fabrication, and preventive maintenance schedules adapted to tropical climate challenges. The Allison is a good engine when properly maintained, Morrison observed after 18 months of combat operations. Turbo superchargers need careful attention, and the cooling system requires constant monitoring. But when everything works correctly, these engines provide power and reliability that win air battles. Combat operations revealed both strengths and weaknesses in V-1710 design and application. High-altitude performance exceeded any competing power plant, giving P-38 pilots decisive advantages in most combat scenarios. Twin-engine installation provided redundancy that allowed damaged aircraft to return home on single-engine power. Smooth operation reduced pilot fatigue during long-range missions over hostile territory. But complexity created maintenance challenges that simpler engines avoided. The turbo supercharging system required specialized tools and trained personnel for service and repair. Cold weather operations revealed design limitations that affected European theater deployments. High-altitude flight demanded cockpit pressurization or oxygen systems not required for low-altitude fighters. Engine development continued throughout the war as Allison engineers addressed combat-identified problems and improved performance characteristics. Later V-1710 variants produced 1,600 horsepower at war emergency power settings, though reliability suffered when engines operated consistently at maximum output. Improved cooling systems, better materials, and enhanced manufacturing processes gradually increased service life and reduced maintenance requirements. The V-1710's most significant contribution to American air power was enabling the P-38 Lightning's unique capabilities. No other engine available in 1942 could provide the combination of power, altitude performance, and reliability necessary for long-range fighter operations. The turbo-supercharged Allison made possible missions like the Yamamoto intercept that extended American reach throughout the Pacific theater. Post-war analysis credited the V-1710 with enabling tactical innovations that changed fighter employment concepts permanently. Long-range escort missions, high-altitude interception, and extended patrol operations all depended on power plant technology that maintained full performance under conditions where conventional engines failed. The Allison V-1710 provided that capability when American forces needed it most. By war's end, Allison had produced over 70,000 V-1710 engines in various configurations, powering fighters, bombers, and specialized aircraft throughout multiple theaters. The P-38 Lightning remained the engine's most successful application, demonstrating how advanced power plant technology could create decisive tactical advantages when properly integrated with airframe design and pilot training. Colonel Neil Kirby, commanding officer of the 348th Fighter Group, studied the intelligence summary spread across his desk at Finschhafen, New Guinea. The date was October 11, 1943, and American air superiority over the Southwest Pacific had become so complete that Japanese daylight operations had virtually ceased in many sectors. The numbers told the story of American industrial and technological dominance. Since January 1, 1943, P-38 Lightning units had claimed over 800 Japanese aircraft destroyed, while losing fewer than 150 of their own fighters. The exchange rate more than 5-to-1 in favor of American forces reflected superior aircraft performance, improved pilot training, and tactical innovations that exploited Lightning capabilities. Kirby's own unit provided a typical example. The 348th Fighter Group had arrived in the Southwest Pacific in June 1943, equipped with Republic P-47 Thunderbolt fighters. By September, the group had transitioned to P-38 Lightnings and immediately showed improved combat effectiveness. Range increased from 400 miles to over 800 miles with drop tanks. Service ceiling rose from 35,000 feet to over 40,000 feet. Most importantly, high-altitude performance gave American pilots tactical control over most combat encounters. "The Japanese can't compete with our new equipment," Kirby noted in his daily operations report. Their fighters were designed for different tactical conditions: short-range interception, turning combat at moderate altitudes, operations from well-developed airfields. "Our Lightnings can fight at altitudes where their engines lose power, outrange their aircraft by hundreds of miles, and engage only when conditions favor victory." The statistical evidence supported Kirby's assessment. Japanese fighter production had peaked in early 1943 and declined steadily thereafter due to raw material shortages, industrial bombing, and diversion of resources to homeland defense. American production continued increasing throughout 1943, with Lockheed delivering over 2,000 P-38s during the year while maintaining quality standards that ensured operational reliability. More critically, pilot training disparities were becoming insurmountable. American flight training programs produced pilots with over 200 hours of flight time before entering combat, including advanced instruction in high-altitude operations, aerial gunnery, and formation flying. Japanese training programs, constrained by fuel shortages and experienced instructor losses, averaged fewer than 100 hours of flight time with minimal advanced training. The quality differential showed in combat results. Veteran Japanese pilots like Saburo Sakai and Hiroyoshi Nishizawa remained dangerous opponents capable of exploiting any American mistake. But they were vastly outnumbered by novice pilots with inadequate training flying aircraft inferior to American equipment. The mathematical result was predictable, steadily increasing American air superiority that eventually became overwhelming. Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Lynch, commanding officer of the 35th Fighter Group and leading American ace until his death in March 1944, analyzed Japanese tactical adaptations to American air superiority. His intelligence reports, circulated throughout 5th Air Force units, described enemy attempts to avoid combat through schedule changes, altitude modifications, and route variations. The enemy has learned to avoid our patrol areas and operate primarily at night or during poor weather conditions. Daylight fighter sweeps encounter minimal opposition except near major Japanese bases where concentrated defenses provide some protection. Their bomber operations have shifted almost entirely to night missions using individual aircraft rather than formation attacks. The tactical shifts reflected Japanese recognition that conventional air combat had become impossible against American formations equipped with superior aircraft and flown by well-trained pilots. Survival required avoiding engagement rather than seeking combat, a strategic admission that air superiority had passed permanently to American forces. Production statistics demonstrated the material advantage that made American air supremacy inevitable. During 1943, American aircraft manufacturers delivered over 85,000 military aircraft of all types, including over 15,000 fighters. Japanese production totaled approximately 16,000 aircraft, with fighter production declining due to strategic bombing and resource shortages. The P-38 Lightning represented the qualitative edge that multiplied American quantitative advantages. Each Lightning could perform missions requiring multiple aircraft of other types: long-range escort, high-altitude interception, ground attack, and reconnaissance. The aircraft's versatility reduced logistical requirements while increasing operational flexibility that Japanese forces couldn't match. Fuel logistics highlighted another American advantage that Japanese planners couldn't overcome. P-38 operations from forward bases required approximately 200 gallons of aviation gasoline per combat mission, including reserves for extended patrol time and combat maneuvering. Japanese fighters consumed similar quantities, but fuel availability steadily declined as submarine warfare and bombing campaigns disrupted supply lines. By late 1943, many Japanese fighter units operated on severely restricted fuel allocations that limited training flights and reduced combat mission frequency. American units received unlimited fuel supplies that supported intensive training programs, extended patrol operations, and maximum combat readiness. The fuel advantage translated directly into operational superiority that affected every aspect of air combat. Maintenance capabilities provided another measure of American industrial superiority. P-38 Lightning units operated with full complement of trained mechanics, adequate spare parts supplies, and specialized tools necessary for complex aircraft maintenance. Japanese fighter units increasingly suffered from maintenance deficiencies that reduced aircraft availability and operational readiness. The complexity differential worked in America's favor due to superior logistical support and training programs. While Japanese forces struggled to maintain simpler aircraft under deteriorating conditions, American units kept sophisticated fighters operational at high readiness rates that maximized combat effectiveness. Industrial capacity translated into sustained operational capability that determined long-term campaign outcomes. Personnel replacement systems illustrated broader differences in national resources and planning. American pilot training programs produced over 40,000 trained aviators during 1943, far exceeding combat losses while maintaining high training standards. Japanese programs, constrained by fuel shortages and instructor losses, could not replace pilot casualties at rates necessary to sustain combat operations. The training quality gap widened as the war progressed. Experienced Japanese instructors died in combat faster than they could pass knowledge to replacement pilots. American training programs, protected by geographical isolation and industrial capacity, continuously improved instruction methods while expanding capacity. The result was systematic degradation of Japanese pilot quality while American capabilities steadily increased. Combat loss statistics reflected these broader trends. During the last quarter of 1943, American fighter units in the Southwest Pacific achieved victory to loss ratios exceeding 10-1 against Japanese opposition. The disparity represented not just superior equipment but also training, logistics, and tactical innovations that created insurmountable advantages. Air superiority enabled other military operations that accelerated Japanese defeat. American bombers operated with minimal fighter escort requirements, allowing maximum payload delivery against industrial and military targets. Ground forces received extensive air support that reduced casualties while increasing operational tempo. Naval operations proceeded without significant air attack threats that had characterized earlier campaign phases. By December 1943, Japanese air power in the Southwest Pacific had been effectively neutralized as an offensive capability. Remaining fighter units operated primarily in defensive roles with limited effectiveness against American formations that controlled engagement timing and conditions. The mathematical progression toward complete American air dominance had become irreversible. Captain Robin Olds pulled his P-38J Lightning into a steep climb above the overcast layers that shrouded the English Channel on the morning of November 26, 1943. Ice crystals formed on his windscreen as altitude increased toward 28,000 feet, where intelligence reports indicated German fighter formations typically patrolled the approaches to occupied France. The temperature at altitude registered -42 degrees Fahrenheit on his cockpit instruments, conditions that created problems unknown to P-38 pilots operating in the Pacific Theater's tropical climate. Cockpit heating systems, adequate for moderate temperatures, provided insufficient warmth at European operating altitudes. Olds wore electrically heated flight clothing, but his hands remained numb inside heated gloves that couldn't completely overcome the Lightning's heating deficiencies. "Cold as a witch's heart up here," Olds muttered into his oxygen mask while adjusting heating controls that provided minimal improvement. The P-38's design had optimized performance characteristics while compromising pilot comfort, an acceptable trade-off in warm climates, but a serious problem during European winter operations at high altitude. The 479th Fighter Group had transitioned to P-38 Lightnings in August 1943, after completing initial operations with Republic P-47 Thunderbolt fighters. The change promised improved high-altitude performance and longer-range capability needed for bomber escort missions deep into German territory. But European conditions revealed design limitations that Pacific operations hadn't encountered. Compressibility problems plagued P-38 operations in the European theater more severely than in other combat zones. The phenomenon occurred when aircraft approached transonic speeds during high-altitude dives, causing shock waves to form over wing surfaces and disrupt normal airflow patterns. Control surfaces became ineffective, preventing pilots from pulling out of dives that could exceed structural limits or impact the ground. Olds had experienced compressibility effects during training flights over California, but European combat conditions made the problem more dangerous. German fighters, when threatened by P-38 attacks, would enter steep dives that challenged American pilots to follow. Lightning pilots who accepted the pursuit often found themselves trapped in uncontrollable dives with insufficient altitude for recovery. "Jerry knows our limitations better than we do sometimes," Olds observed after a combat mission where Focke-Wulf FW-190 fighters had escaped by diving away from his formation. "They'll pull us into situations where our aircraft characteristics work against us. The smart ones use every advantage they can get." Technical solutions existed but took months to reach operational units. Lockheed engineers had developed dive recovery flaps that automatically extended during high-speed dives to disrupt airflow and reduce compressibility effects. The modification required retrofit installations on aircraft already in service, a process complicated by combat operations and maintenance schedules. More frustrating, a shipment of 200 dive flap modification kits destined for European theater P-38s was destroyed when Royal Air Force fighters mistakenly shot down the Douglas C-54 transport carrying them to England. The pilot had apparently mistaken the transport for a German Focke-Wulf FW-200 Condor, an identification error that cost American units months of additional operations with unmodified aircraft. Winter weather created additional challenges that Pacific-based units never encountered. Ice formation on wings and propellers reduced performance and created safety hazards during takeoff and landing. Engines required extended warm-up periods that consumed fuel and delayed mission launches. Cold weather starting procedures demanded special equipment and techniques unfamiliar to mechanics trained in temperate climates. Lieutenant Colonel Hub Zemke, commanding officer of the 56th Fighter Group, analyzed P-38 European performance in detailed reports submitted to 8th Air Force Headquarters. His conclusions identified specific problems while acknowledging the Lightning's capabilities under proper conditions. The P-38 provides excellent high-altitude performance and long-range capability essential for escort missions over Germany. However, cold weather operations reveal design limitations that affect pilot effectiveness and aircraft reliability. Cockpit heating is inadequate for extended high-altitude missions. Engine warm-up requirements delay formation launches and consume excessive fuel. Most critically, compressibility characteristics limit tactical options against experienced German pilots. German pilots, initially surprised by P-38 appearance over European battlefields, quickly developed tactics that exploited Lightning weaknesses while avoiding its strengths. Messerschmitt Bf 109 and Focke-Wulf FW 190 fighters used superior roll rates and diving performance to escape unfavorable engagements. They avoided turning combat where P-38 pilots might use their aircraft's advantages effectively. Major Gunther Rall, one of Germany's leading aces with over 200 victories, described Luftwaffe tactics for engaging P-38 formations in post-war interviews. The American twin-engine fighter was dangerous when properly flown, but it had weaknesses we learned to exploit. High-speed diving attacks followed by continued dives to ground level usually succeeded because the Lightning pilots couldn't follow without risking compressibility problems. In cold weather, their reduced maneuverability gave us additional advantages in close combat. The tactical environment in Europe differed significantly from Pacific conditions where P-38s achieved their greatest successes. German fighters operated from established airfields with sophisticated maintenance facilities and experienced ground crews. Pilot training, while declining from early war standards, remained superior to Japanese programs by 1943. Most importantly, Luftwaffe fighters operated over friendly territory where damaged aircraft could reach repair facilities and rescued pilots could return to duty. American bomber escort missions created tactical situations that didn't favor P-38 characteristics. Formation flying at precise altitudes and speeds reduced the Lightning's speed advantage while exposing formations to coordinated German attacks. Escort duties prevented American pilots from using hit-and-run tactics that maximized P-38 effectiveness in other theaters. The arrival of North American P-51 Mustang fighters in early 1944 provided alternatives that better suited European conditions. The Mustang's liquid-cooled Merlin engine operated efficiently at high altitude without turbo supercharging complexity. Its smaller size and lighter weight provided better maneuverability in turning combat. Most importantly, its fuel consumption allowed escort missions to Berlin and beyond ranges that challenged P-38 capabilities even with drop tanks. Statistical analysis of European air combat revealed the Lightning's mixed performance record compared to other American fighters. P-38 units achieved favorable kill ratios against German opposition but suffered higher loss rates than P-47 or P-51 units operating in similar conditions. The disparity reflected tactical employment challenges rather than fundamental aircraft deficiencies. Many of Europe's most successful P-38 pilots learned to work within their aircraft's limitations while exploiting its genuine advantages. Major Richard Bong, during a brief assignment to European operations, demonstrated tactics that achieved excellent results by avoiding situations where Lightning weaknesses might prove decisive. "You have to fly the airplane, not fight it," Bong advised European theater P-38 pilots during tactical briefings. Use your speed and altitude advantages to control engagement conditions. Avoid turning combat at low altitude where German aircraft excel. Most importantly, know when to disengage and live to fight again under better circumstances. By mid-1944, most 8th Air Force fighter groups had transitioned from P-38s to P-51 Mustangs for long-range escort duties. Lightning units remaining in the European theater shifted to ground attack and reconnaissance roles where their heavy armament and twin-engine reliability provided advantages over single-engine alternatives. The European experience demonstrated that even excellent aircraft could face conditions that limited their effectiveness. The P-38 Lightning remained a capable fighter in European operations, but it achieved greatest success in theaters where climate and tactical conditions matched its design characteristics. The sound of precision manufacturing echoed through Building 304 at Lockheed's Burbank facility as the night shift prepared for another 8 hours of P-38 Lightning production. The date was July 15, 1944, and American industry was producing fighters at rates that would have seemed impossible 3 years earlier when war production programs first began. Dorothy Henderson clocked in at her station on the wing assembly line, where she had spent the last 22 months fabricating control surfaces for America's most complex single-seat fighter. Before Pearl Harbor, she had worked as a seamstress in a Los Angeles garment factory. The transition to aircraft production required learning new skills: metalworking, precision measurement, quality control procedures, but the work provided better pay and the satisfaction of contributing directly to the war effort. Tonight's target is 38 wing sets, announced production supervisor Carl Morrison as workers gathered around their stations. Corporate headquarters wants 40, but we're still waiting for control cable deliveries from the consolidated plant in San Diego. What we do get, we build right the first time. No shortcuts, no quality compromises. The Lightning's wing structure represented one of the most complex manufacturing challenges in American aircraft production. Each wing contained over 800 individual parts fabricated from aluminum alloy sheets, forgings, and castings. Assembly required precise coordination between multiple production lines, feeding components to final assembly stations where skilled workers integrated everything into completed wing panels. Henderson's responsibility involved installing control cables, pulleys, and mounting brackets that connected cockpit controls to wing-mounted ailerons and flaps. The work demanded attention to detail that prevented control system failures potentially fatal to pilots depending on their aircraft's reliability. Each installation required inspection and testing before wings could proceed to final assembly areas. "Remember what we're building here," Henderson would tell new workers assigned to her station. "Every Lightning we complete might carry some young man safely home from a dangerous mission. That young man might be somebody's son, husband, or brother. We can't let him down by doing sloppy work." Quality control at Lockheed exceeded industry standards due to the P-38's complexity and critical mission requirements. Each major component underwent multiple inspections during fabrication and assembly processes. Final inspection teams examined completed aircraft using detailed checklists that covered every system, component, and structural element. Rejection rates averaged less than 2%, but rejected aircraft received complete rework to correct all deficiencies. The production process began with raw materials carefully selected for their specific properties. Aluminum alloy sheets met precise specifications for strength, weight, and corrosion resistance. Steel components required heat treatment that provided proper hardness characteristics. Electrical components underwent extensive testing to ensure reliability under combat conditions including extreme temperatures, vibration, and electrical interference. Lockheed's production engineering department had revolutionized aircraft manufacturing through innovations that reduced assembly time while maintaining quality standards. Modular construction allowed subassemblies to be completed independently before integration into final aircraft. Standardized tooling ensured consistent quality across multiple production lines. Most importantly, detailed planning eliminated bottlenecks that could delay entire production schedules. Wing manufacturing provided an example of systematic production innovation. Traditional aircraft construction built wings as single assemblies requiring extensive coordination between multiple trades. Lockheed divided wing construction into subassembly center sections, outer panels, control surfaces, landing gear installations that could proceed independently before final integration. The center section assembly line operated as a separate production unit where specialized teams installed landing gear mechanisms, fuel tanks, and structural reinforcements. Workers developed expertise in specific operations while production engineers optimized workflow to eliminate wasted motion and unnecessary delays. The result was consistent output that met quality standards while maintaining aggressive delivery schedules. Engine installation presented unique challenges due to the P-38's twin powerplant configuration. Each Allison V-17-10 engine arrived from the Indianapolis factory as a complete unit requiring precise mounting and connection to aircraft systems. Installation teams used overhead cranes and specialized jigs to position engines accurately while connecting mechanical and electrical interfaces. Robert Chun supervised the engine bay where 18 P-38s moved through installation procedures simultaneously. His crew of 72 mechanics could complete both engine installations in 4 hours and 15 minutes, a time that represented continuous improvement since production began in 1941. "Precision is everything," Chen explained to visiting Army Air Forces inspectors. "Engine alignment must be perfect to prevent vibration problems. Electrical connections must be secure to ensure system reliability. Most importantly, every installation must be identical so pilots can transition between aircraft without relearning procedures." The turbo supercharger installation required particular attention due to its complexity and critical importance to high-altitude performance. Each system included exhaust-driven turbines, intercoolers, pressure regulators, and control mechanisms that demanded precise adjustment for optimal operation. Installation errors could cause engine failures that might prove fatal during combat operations. Quality control inspectors examined every turbo supercharger installation using specialized test equipment that verified proper operation under simulated flight conditions. The testing process added 2 hours to each aircraft's production schedule, but eliminated field failures that could cost pilots their lives. Lockheed's commitment to quality sometimes conflicted with quantity demands, but combat feedback confirmed that reliability was worth the extra effort. Final assembly brought together components from multiple production lines in a process that represented the culmination of months of detailed planning and preparation. Wings joined fuselages using precision machined fittings that ensured proper alignment. Landing gear installation required hydraulic systems testing that verified operation under load conditions. Flight control rigging demanded careful adjustment to provide proper response characteristics. The electrical system integration presented particular challenges due to the P-38's sophisticated avionics and weapon systems. Over 400 individual connections linked radios, navigation equipment, engine instruments, and gun sight systems. Each connection required proper installation and testing to prevent failures that could compromise mission success or pilot safety. Eleanor Martinez headed the electrical installation department, where 60 technicians worked 3 shifts to maintain production schedules. Her team had developed assembly techniques that reduced installation time while improving reliability through standardized procedures and quality control measures. "Every wire has a specific routing path," Martinez explained to new workers. "Every connection has a designated torque specification. Every installation must pass electrical testing before the aircraft can proceed to final inspection. There are no exceptions, no shortcuts, and no compromises with electrical system integrity." The weapon system installation required particular expertise due to the P-38's concentrated nose armament. For 50 caliber machine guns and one 20mm cannon demanded precise alignment to ensure accurate fire convergence. Ammunition feed systems required careful adjustment to prevent jamming during high-G combat maneuvers. Gun sight installation needed exact calibration to provide accurate aiming references. Test firing occurred at a remote facility where completed P-38s fired their weapons into earthen backstops that captured projectiles safely. The testing verified proper function while identifying problems that ground inspection might miss. Aircraft that failed test firing returned to the factory for system adjustments until all weapons operated correctly. Paint and finishing operations provided the final production steps before aircraft acceptance by Army Air Forces representatives. The standard camouflage scheme olive drab upper surfaces and neutral gray lower surfaces required careful application to provide corrosion protection while maintaining proper color specifications. National insignia and serial numbers were applied according to strict military standards. By late 1944, Lockheed was completing one P-38 Lightning every 4 hours and 27 minutes around the clock. The achievement represented systematic optimization of manufacturing processes that had transformed aircraft production from craft industry to mass production. Workers, engineers, and supervisors had combined their skills to create production capability that exceeded pre-war estimates by enormous margins. The human cost of maintaining such production schedules included 12-hour shifts, mandatory overtime, and workplace conditions that prioritized output over comfort. Workers accepted these sacrifices willingly because they understood their contribution to winning the war. Letters from combat pilots describing successful missions provided constant reminders of their work's importance. "We built airplanes that saved American lives," Henderson reflected years later when describing her wartime service. "Every rivet, every wire, every component had to be perfect because mistakes could kill the boys flying our aircraft. That responsibility kept us motivated through the long hours and difficult conditions." Production quality metrics demonstrated Lockheed's commitment to excellence despite enormous quantity pressures. Rejection rates remained below 2% throughout peak production periods. Field failure reports showed exceptional reliability compared to other complex aircraft. Most importantly, combat effectiveness statistics confirmed that Lightnings performed as designed under the most demanding conditions. The final P-38 Lightning, serial number 44-53254, completed production on August 23, 1945, just days after Japan's surrender ended World War II. Total production reached 10,037 aircraft, an achievement that represented American industrial capacity and technological innovation at their finest. Oberst Friedrich Altmannsberger adjusted his reading glasses and studied the technical manual spread across his desk at the Erprobungstel-Recklen Flight Test Center. The captured Lockheed P-38F Lightning, forced down by engine failure near Sardinia 3 weeks earlier, represented the most advanced American fighter aircraft to fall into German hands since the war began. The date was September 28, 1943, and German technical intelligence desperately needed detailed information about Allied aircraft capabilities. The Lightning's twin-boom configuration and sophisticated systems offered insights into American design philosophy and manufacturing techniques that might influence future German aircraft development. "This aircraft represents systematic engineering approach completely different from our design methods," Altmannsberger noted in his preliminary report to the Reich Air Ministry. "Every component reflects careful optimization for specific performance requirements. The Americans have achieved remarkable integration of complex systems while maintaining production feasibility." The captured P-38F, serial number 42-12793, had suffered minimal damage during its emergency landing and provided German engineers with their first opportunity to examine turbo-supercharged American engines under controlled conditions. The Allison V-17-10 51 power plants, each producing 1,300 horsepower at altitude, demonstrated technological capabilities that German industry had not matched in production aircraft. Test pilot Major Hans Werner Lurk conducted the first German flight evaluation of the Lightning under security conditions that prevented Allied intelligence from learning about the captured aircraft. His flight report, classified as most secret and distributed to fewer than 20 individuals, provided detailed analysis of American fighter capabilities. Performance exceeds intelligence estimates in all categories except turning radius at low altitude. Maximum speed at 25,000 feet approaches 650 kilometers per hour, significantly faster than our best fighters. Climb rate above 7,000 meters surpasses Bf-109G performance by substantial margins. Most impressive is the smooth operation and pilot workload reduction achieved through automated systems. The turbo supercharging systems attracted particular German attention because similar technology had proven troublesome in their own aircraft development programs. American engineers had solved problems that continued plaguing German attempts at reliable high-altitude power plants. Temperature control, pressure regulation, and bearing lubrication all demonstrated sophisticated solutions to engineering challenges. Dr. Ernst Heinkel, whose company had experimented extensively with turbo supercharging, examined the Lightning's installation with professional admiration mixed with frustration at German industry's inability to achieve similar results. The American installation shows remarkable attention to reliability and maintainability. Control systems are simple and effective. Lubrication systems provide adequate oil flow under all operating conditions. Most importantly, the entire installation appears designed for mass production rather than prototype development. German metallurgical analysis of Lightning components revealed American advantages in materials technology and manufacturing processes. Aluminum alloys demonstrated strength characteristics superior to German equivalents while maintaining lighter weight. Steel components showed consistent quality that German industry struggled to achieve under wartime production pressures. The Lightning's armament installation provided insights into American tactical doctrine and manufacturing capabilities. Concentration of all weapons in the nose eliminated convergence problems that limited wing-mounted gun effectiveness. The installation required precision manufacturing techniques that demonstrated American industrial sophistication. Waffenmeister Otto Becker, Germany's leading expert on aircraft armament systems, analyzed the P-38's weapon installation in detail. The American approach eliminates many problems associated with wing-mounted weapons while providing devastating firepower concentration. However, the installation requires manufacturing precision and quality control beyond current German capabilities. Their production methods achieve better results with less skilled labor than our traditional craft techniques. The Lightning's electrical systems revealed American advances in avionics integration that German engineers had not anticipated. Multiple radio systems, navigation equipment, and automated controls demonstrated systematic approach to pilot workload reduction. The installation suggested design philosophy that prioritized operational effectiveness over weight reduction. Flight testing revealed both strengths and weaknesses that German pilots might exploit in combat. The P-38's excellent high-altitude performance and long range created tactical advantages that German fighters couldn't match directly. But turning performance at low altitude and roll rate in close combat provided opportunities for properly trained Luftwaffe pilots. Major Adolf Galland, general of the fighter arm, incorporated P-38 analysis into tactical guidance distributed to German fighter units. The enemy aircraft is most dangerous when operated according to American tactical doctrine high-altitude attacks using speed and firepower advantages. German pilots must avoid combat at altitudes where the Lightning's turbo-supercharged engines provide maximum performance. Attack from high altitude using diving speed advantage, fire one accurate burst, then continue diving to ground level. The tactical analysis proved accurate during subsequent combat encounters. German pilots who followed prescribed engagement methods achieved occasional successes against P-38 formations. But the Lightning's performance advantages made consistent success impossible except under ideal conditions rarely encountered in combat. Manufacturing analysis revealed American production techniques that impressed German industrial experts. Modular construction methods allowed complex aircraft to be assembled efficiently by relatively unskilled workers. Standardized components reduced manufacturing complexity while improving field maintenance. Quality control procedures ensured consistent results despite enormous production quantities. Heinrich Focke, designer of the FW-190 fighter, studied P-38 construction methods with particular interest in American solutions to production challenges. Their approach emphasizes manufacturing efficiency over design elegance. Components are designed for rapid assembly rather than minimum weight. The result is aircraft that can be produced in large quantities while maintaining performance and reliability standards. We could learn much from their production engineering methods. The captured Lightning provided intelligence that influenced several German aircraft development programs. The Messerschmitt Me-262 jet fighter incorporated some American ideas about systems integration and pilot workload reduction. The Dornier Du 335 twin-engine fighter reflected lessons learned from P-38 configuration analysis. But German industry lacked the resources and time to implement comprehensive changes based on American technology. Raw material shortages, bombing damage to factories, and diversion of engineering talent to desperate projects prevented systematic application of captured intelligence. The P-38 analysis became more valuable for understanding American capabilities than for improving German aircraft. Intelligence officers distributed tactical summaries based on Lightning analysis to all German fighter units operating where P-38 encounters were likely. The information helped Luftwaffe pilots understand their opponent's strengths and weaknesses while developing engagement methods that maximize German aircraft advantages. Post-war interviews with German pilots revealed that P-38 technical intelligence had significant impact on combat tactics. Understanding Lightning capabilities allowed experienced pilots to achieve better results when engaging American formations. However, declining pilot quality and fuel shortages prevented consistent application of improved tactics. The captured P-38F continued flying test missions until advancing Allied forces threatened the Rechlin facility in early 1945. German engineers destroyed the aircraft rather than allow its recapture. ending one of the war's most comprehensive technical intelligence operations. The knowledge gained from 18 months of analysis provided insights that influenced German aviation technology for years after the war ended. Major Richard Bong climbed into the cockpit of his P-38 Lightning, serial number 44-23429, and began his pre-flight procedures as pale dawn light filtered through scattered clouds over Tacloban Airfield, Leyte. The date was December 15, 1944, and his current tally of 39 confirmed victories made him America's leading ace, just 1 kill away from the psychologically important milestone of 40. March 3, the third aircraft to bear his fiancée's name, represented the latest Lightning variant with improved engines, enhanced armament, and dive recovery flaps that eliminated compressibility problems that had plagued earlier models. The aircraft systems reflected 3 years of combat experience and engineering refinement that had transformed the original XP-38 prototype into the most capable long-range fighter in American service. Bong's assignment to 5th Air Force Headquarters as advanced gunnery instructor officially prohibited him from seeking combat, but General Kenny had given him discretionary authority to fly missions when his presence might improve training effectiveness. The distinction allowed America's most successful fighter pilot to continue accumulating victories while technically serving in a non-combat role. "Weather looks good for a fighter sweep over Mindoro," announced Captain William Dunham, operations officer for the V Fighter Command. "Intelligence reports indicate Japanese fighters staging through Clark Field for attacks on our shipping. Your flight could provide valuable tactical information while conducting training missions." The rationalization satisfied military protocol while allowing Bong to pursue his 40th victory. His analytical nature recognized the artificial distinction, but he understood the political necessity of protecting America's leading ace from unnecessary risks. His survival provided more value than additional victories, though the competitive drive that made him successful demanded continued combat opportunities. 8 P-38 LS launched from Tacloban at 7:30 am. Climbing rapidly through tropical humidity toward patrol altitude, above the central Philippines. Bong led the formation in a standard combat spread that provided mutual support while allowing individual aircraft maneuvering room during potential engagements. His wingman, Lieutenant Fred Champlin, flew close formation to provide defensive coverage and witness any victories claimed. At 22,000 feet, the formation leveled off and began their sweep toward Clark Field, where Japanese fighters typically launched interception missions against American air attacks. Intelligence estimates suggested light opposition, perhaps 6 to 8 fighters available for operations, but veteran pilots like Bong never underestimated enemy capabilities regardless of apparent weakness. Bandits, 2 o'clock low, Angels 12, transmitted Lieutenant Robert Wade from his position as tail end Charlie. "Looks like 2 aircraft climbing northeast toward Cabanatuan." Bong's experienced eye identified the targets as Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar fighters, single-engine aircraft capable of exceptional maneuverability, but limited in high-altitude performance compared to turbo-supercharged P-38s. The tactical situation favored the American formation, which held altitude advantage and could choose engagement timing. "Drop tanks on my mark," Bong commanded, positioning his flight for attack runs that would use altitude and speed advantages, while minimizing exposure to Japanese defensive fire. "Remember, these guys are good at turning combat. Stay fast and don't get sucked into low-altitude dogfights." The external fuel tanks fell away as the P-38s entered their diving attack, each aircraft shedding 400 pounds of weight while retaining sufficient internal fuel for 30 minutes of combat plus reserves for the return flight to Tacloban. The formation's attack profile followed doctrine developed through 3 years of combat experience and countless tactical innovations. Bong's initial target, the lead Oscar, began defensive maneuvering as the P-38s approached firing range. The Japanese pilot pulled into a steep climbing turn that bled airspeed while changing his aircraft's heading away from the incoming attack. But the Lightning's superior speed and altitude allowed Bong to adjust his approach while maintaining tactical advantage. At 400 yards range, Bong fired a 2-second burst that walked 50 caliber bullets from the Oscar's wing root to its engine cowling. The concentration of 4 machine guns plus 1 20mm cannon created devastating firepower that few aircraft could survive. The Japanese fighter shuddered under multiple impacts, then rolled inverted and dove toward the ground, trailing smoke and flame. Bong's 39th victory lasted perhaps 8 seconds from initial trigger pull to target destruction. He had no time to observe the Oscar's final impact because the second Japanese fighter was maneuvering for a shot at Lieutenant Wade's Lightning. Combat discipline demanded immediate attention to threats against other formation members. "Wade, break right," Bong transmitted while pulling his Lightning into a hard left turn that brought him into position for a defensive shot. The second Oscar pilot, apparently more experienced than his wingman, had positioned himself well for a deflection shot that could disable the American fighter. But the Japanese pilot made a critical error by maintaining his attack run instead of breaking off when Bong's Lightning appeared in his peripheral vision. The decision reflected either inexperience or desperation, both of which had become common characteristics of Japanese aviation by late 1944. Veteran pilots were increasingly rare, and replacement pilots often lacked the training necessary for survival against experienced American opposition. Bong's deflection shot required precise calculation of lead angle, target speed, and bullet flight time. His years of aerial gunnery experience and analytical approach to combat problems enabled split-second solutions to complex ballistic equations. The burst lasted 1.5 seconds and placed 20mm explosive shells directly into the Oscar's engine compartment. The Japanese fighter disintegrated under the impact of high explosive shells that detonated fuel tanks and severed control cables. No parachute appeared. The pilot was either killed by the initial explosions or incapacitated by battle damage. The aircraft crashed into rice paddies near Penubalin Island, sending up a column of black smoke that marked Bong's 40th victory. "Congratulations, Major," transmitted Lieutenant Champlin, who had witnessed both kills from close formation position. "That's number 40. You just became the first American pilot to reach that milestone." The achievement represented more than personal accomplishment. Bong's 40th victory demonstrated American air superiority and tactical competence that had transformed Pacific air combat since the dark days of early 1942. His success reflected superior aircraft, improved pilot training, and tactical innovations that had given American forces decisive advantages over Japanese opposition. 2 days later, on December 17th, Bong flew what would prove to be his final combat mission. Intelligence reports indicated Japanese fighter activity over San Jose, Mindoro, where enemy aircraft were attempting to disrupt American construction of forward airfields. The mission offered another opportunity for combat while providing tactical training for less experienced pilots. The engagement followed familiar patterns. Bong's flight intercepted a lone Ki-43 Oscar at 15,000 feet and used standard Lightning tactics to achieve a successful interception. The Japanese pilot fought skillfully but couldn't overcome the P-38's performance advantages and concentrated firepower. Bong's guns ended the brief combat with a 3-second burst that sent the Oscar crashing into the jungle below. Victory number 41 would be his last. General Kenny, recognizing that America's leading ace had accomplished more than enough to justify permanent relief from combat duty, ordered Bong home for war bond tours and training assignments. The decision protected a valuable national resource while acknowledging that continued combat exposure served no useful military purpose. "You've done your job, Dick," Kenny told Bong during their final meeting at 5th Air Force Headquarters. 40-plus victories is more than enough for one pilot. It's time to go home, marry that girl of yours, and help us train the next generation of fighter pilots. The war will be over soon, and America will need experienced pilots to teach others what you've learned. Bong's combat career had spanned 27 months and resulted in 40 confirmed aerial victories, 7 probable victories, and 11 enemy aircraft damaged. He had flown 200 combat missions totaling over 500 combat hours while suffering only minor battle damage to his various aircraft. Most importantly, he had developed tactical techniques that improved Lightning effectiveness throughout the Pacific theater. His final combat report, submitted to V Fighter Command Headquarters on December 18, 1944, summarized lessons learned during 2 years of aerial combat. The P-38 Lightning remains superior to all Japanese fighter aircraft in speed, climb rate, and firepower. Proper tactical employment emphasizes these advantages while avoiding turning combat where enemy maneuverability might prove decisive. Most critical factors for success are maintaining altitude advantage, achieving surprise through proper approach techniques, and firing accurate bursts at close range to ensure target destruction. The report became required reading for all P-38 pilots entering Pacific combat operations. Its tactical principles influenced American fighter doctrine for the remainder of the war and beyond. Bong's analytical approach to aerial combat had produced not just individual success but systematic improvements in American air power capabilities. On January 6, 1945, Major Richard Bong departed Tacloban Airfield for the final time as his transport aircraft climbed into tropical skies that had witnessed his greatest triumphs. Below him stretched the islands and waters where he had established himself as America's greatest fighter pilot while contributing to the victory that was now clearly inevitable. The morning of August 6, 1945 broke clear and warm over Burbank, California, as Major Richard Bong walked across the tarmac toward the sleek Lockheed P-80 shooting star that waited on the flight line. The jet fighter, serial number 44-85048, represented America's entry into the jet age and the future of military aviation beyond the propeller-driven aircraft that had won World War II. Bong had returned from the Pacific Theater 6 months earlier with 40 confirmed aerial victories and a reputation as America's greatest fighter pilot. His assignment as test pilot for the revolutionary P-80 program promised to ease his transition from combat operations to peacetime military service while contributing to development of advanced aircraft technology. The shooting star differed dramatically from the P-38 Lightning that had carried Bong to fame in Pacific skies. Instead of twin propeller-driven engines, the P-80 used a single General Electric I-40 turbojet producing 4,000 pounds of thrust. Maximum speed exceeded 500 miles per hour in level flight, 100 miles per hour faster than the fastest Lightning variants. The aircraft represented technological leap equivalent to the transition from biplanes to monoplanes 20 years earlier. But the P-80's advanced technology created new hazards that even experienced test pilots were still learning to understand. Jet engines responded differently than piston power plants. Fuel consumption rates were enormous compared to conventional aircraft. Emergency procedures required completely new techniques for situations that had never occurred with propeller-driven fighters. Bong's test flight schedule for August 6 included evaluation of low-altitude performance characteristics and engine response during simulated combat maneuvers. The mission represented routine testing that had been conducted safely dozens of times by Lockheed's experienced pilots. Nothing in the flight plan suggested unusual risks or experimental procedures that might create dangerous situations. At 10:25 a.m., Bong started the P-80's jet engine and completed his pre-takeoff checks according to procedures developed through months of test flying. The turbojet's whine replaced the familiar rumble of reciprocating engines, but the sound had become routine through his previous flights in the revolutionary aircraft. Tower clearance authorized takeoff from runway 7, with instructions to remain in the local training area and maintain radio contact throughout the flight. Weather conditions were ideal: clear skies, light winds, excellent visibility that allowed visual navigation throughout the Los Angeles basin. No factors suggested potential complications or safety concerns. Bong advanced the throttle to full power and released the brakes. The P-80 accelerated rapidly down the runway, reaching takeoff speed within 1,500 feet and lifting smoothly into the California morning. External observers noted normal engine sound and proper flight attitude as the aircraft climbed away from the airfield toward designated testing areas. At approximately 100 feet altitude, the P-80's engine suddenly lost power. The turbojet's characteristic whine changed to an irregular sound that indicated serious internal problems. Witnesses on the ground reported seeing flames erupting from the engine exhaust nozzle before the aircraft's nose pitched downward into an uncontrollable descent. Bong attempted emergency procedures that might restore engine power or at least provide sufficient thrust for emergency landing. But the engine failure appeared to be catastrophic, with complete loss of power that eliminated any possibility of maintaining flight. At such low altitude, options for recovery were extremely limited. The P-80 crashed into a field near the end of the runway, erupting in flames that consumed the aircraft within minutes. Fire rescue equipment reached the crash site quickly, but Major Bong had been killed on impact. The same analytical mind and precise flying techniques that had made him America's leading ace could not overcome mechanical failure in an aircraft type where engine problems meant certain death. Investigation revealed that the primary engine fuel pump had failed during the critical takeoff phase when maximum power was essential for climbing flight. The malfunction cut fuel flow to the turbojet at precisely the moment when the aircraft was most vulnerable to power loss. At higher altitude, emergency procedures might have provided options for safe landing or pilot escape. But takeoff accidents in single-engine aircraft rarely offered second chances. The tragic irony was immediately apparent to everyone familiar with Bong's combat record. He had survived over 500 hours of combat flying in dangerous aircraft over hostile territory, engaging enemy fighters and anti-aircraft fire while completing 200 combat missions. Death came not in battle against worthy opponents but during peacetime test flying of advanced American technology. News of Bong's death reached the public on the same day that the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan. Many newspapers carried both stories on their front pages: the dawn of the nuclear age alongside the death of America's greatest fighter pilot. The juxtaposition seemed to symbolize the end of one era of warfare and the beginning of another. General George Kenney, who had guided Bong's career from lieutenant to major and watched him develop into an exceptional combat pilot, expressed the feelings of all who had known America's ace of aces. "Dick Bong was the finest fighter pilot I ever knew. His loss is a tragedy not just for his family and friends, but for American aviation and everyone who believed in the values he represented. He died as he had lived, pushing the boundaries of flight and contributing to his country's security." The funeral service at Poplar, Wisconsin, drew thousands of mourners who came to honor the small-town farm boy who would become America's greatest military aviator. Military honors included flyovers by P-38 Lightning fighters from units where Bong had served, their twin-boomed silhouettes providing final tribute to the pilot who had mastered their complex systems better than anyone else. Marjorie Bong, the wife he had married just months earlier after promising to return safely from the Pacific War, received condolences from military leaders, political figures, and ordinary Americans who had followed her husband's career through newspaper accounts of his victories. Her loss personalized the tragedy for a nation that had adopted Dick Bong as symbol of American determination and skill. The P-80 Shooting Star program continued despite the tragedy, eventually producing over 1,700 aircraft that served as America's first operational jet fighters. The lessons learned from Bong's accident contributed to improved safety procedures and emergency systems that reduced risks for subsequent test pilots and operational units. But the loss of America's leading ace just days before Japan's surrender seemed to embody the random cruelty of war and the price paid by those who served their country in dangerous occupations. Richard Bong had survived the deadliest air combat of World War II only to die testing the aircraft that would define aviation's future. His death marked the end of the propeller-driven fighter era that had begun with World War I biplanes and culminated in advanced aircraft like the P-38 Lightning. Jet technology would transform military aviation completely, creating capabilities that pilots like Bong could hardly have imagined when they first climbed into the cockpits of piston-engine fighters. The 40 victories that made Richard Bong America's ace of aces would remain unsurpassed in American military aviation. Future conflicts would be fought with different aircraft under different conditions that made individual aerial combat increasingly rare. Bong's record represented the culmination of fighter pilot achievement in an era that ended with his death on August 6, 1945. Air Force Colonel William Maguire settled into his chair at the Pentagon's Air Historical Branch and opened the classified study that would define the P-38 Lightning's place in American aviation history. The date was March 15, 1948, and 3 years of post-war analysis had provided objective assessment of aircraft performance during World War II's diverse combat conditions. The Lockheed P-38 Lightning represented the most successful twin-engine, single-seat fighter design in aviation history, Maguire wrote in his summary report. Total production of 10,037 aircraft equipped 57 squadrons operating in every theater of World War II. Combat effectiveness statistics demonstrate superior performance against enemy aircraft, while providing versatility unmatched by contemporary designs. The statistical evidence supported Maguire's conclusions. P-38 Lightning units had claimed over 4,800 enemy aircraft destroyed, while losing fewer than 1,800 of their own fighters. The victory-to-loss ratio of approximately 2.7 to 1 exceeded performance achieved by most other American fighter types, though it fell short of ratios achieved by later designs like the P-51 Mustang. More significantly, the Lightning's versatility had enabled mission types impossible for conventional single-engine fighters. Long-range escort missions, high-altitude reconnaissance, night fighting operations, and ground attack sorties all demonstrated capabilities that made the P-38 uniquely valuable despite its complexity and cost. Pacific theater statistics revealed the Lightning's greatest achievements. In operations against Japanese forces, P-38 units had achieved victory-to-loss ratios exceeding 4 to 1 while operating from primitive airfields under challenging logistical conditions. The aircraft's twin-engine reliability and long range had proven essential for missions over vast ocean expanses, where single-engine fighters couldn't operate safely. Pacific operations demonstrated the P-38's fundamental design advantages, noted Lieutenant Colonel Francis Gabreski, a leading ace who had flown both Lightning and Mustang fighters in combat. Twin engines provided security during long over-water flights. Concentrated nose armament delivered devastating firepower. High-altitude performance exceeded any Japanese fighter throughout the war. Most importantly, the aircraft could perform missions that no other fighter could accomplish. European theater results proved more complex due to environmental conditions that challenged Lightning operations. Cold weather, high-altitude combat, and sophisticated enemy opposition had revealed design limitations not apparent in Pacific operations. P-38 units achieved respectable results but never dominated European skies as completely as they had Pacific battlefields. The comparison between P-38 and P-51 performance in European operations provided insights into aircraft design philosophy and tactical employment. The Mustang's lighter weight, simpler systems, and lower cost made it better suited to mass production and deployment. But the Lightning's superior firepower, twin-engine reliability, and specialized capabilities justified continued production for specific mission requirements. Intelligence analysis revealed enemy perspectives that confirmed American assessments of Lightning capabilities. German documents captured after the war showed consistent recognition of P-38 superiority in high-altitude combat and long-range operations. Japanese sources revealed even greater concern about Lightning operations that had systematically destroyed Imperial air power throughout the Pacific. The enemy aircraft represented systematic engineering approach to fighter design, read a captured German technical report. Every component reflected careful optimization for specific mission requirements. American industry had achieved integration of complex systems, while maintaining production feasibility that German manufacturers could not match. Cost analysis provided sobering perspective on Lightning production economics. Each P-38 cost approximately $120,000 in 1943 prices 60% more than comparable single-engine fighters. The price differential reflected complexity inherent in twin-engine design but also demonstrated American industrial capacity to produce sophisticated equipment in large quantities. Maintenance requirements had proven both Lightning's strength and weakness throughout combat operations. The aircraft system's redundancy and rugged construction enabled operations from primitive airfields under adverse conditions. But complexity demanded skilled mechanics and extensive spare parts supplies not always available at forward bases. Units with proper maintenance support achieved excellent operational readiness rates, while those lacking adequate support suffered significantly reduced effectiveness. Pilot training analysis revealed another complexity factor that affected Lightning operations. The aircraft's twin-engine configuration and sophisticated systems required approximately 40% more training time than single-engine fighters. During wartime expansion, this requirement strained pilot training capacity and delayed unit deployment. However, pilots who mastered Lightning systems typically achieved better combat results than those flying simpler aircraft. The tactical innovations developed by P-38 pilots had influenced fighter doctrine throughout American air forces. High-altitude attack methods, energy management techniques, and formation flying procedures pioneered by Lightning units became standard practices adopted by all fighter aircraft. Richard Bong's analytical approach to aerial combat provided tactical principles that remained relevant even as jet aircraft replaced propeller-driven designs. production achievements demonstrated American industrial capabilities that had proven decisive in global warfare. Lockheed's manufacturing innovations, modular construction, quality control procedures, and systematic production engineering had established techniques adopted throughout American aircraft industry. The Lightning program had transformed aircraft production from craft industry to mass production while maintaining quality standards. International comparison revealed the P-38's unique position in World War II aviation. No other nation had developed twin-engine, single-seat fighters matching Lightning capabilities. British attempts like the Westland Whirlwind had failed due to engine problems and limited production. German designs like the Messerschmitt Bf 110 had proven vulnerable to single-engine opposition. Only American industrial capacity and technological innovation had made the Lightning concept practical. Strategic impact assessment showed the Lightning's contribution to overall American air superiority. The aircraft's long range had extended American fighter operations throughout the Pacific, enabling attack missions against previously invulnerable targets. High-altitude performance had dominated Japanese opposition while providing bomber escort capabilities that reduced American losses significantly. The reconnaissance variants designated F-4 and F-5 had provided 90% of Allied photo intelligence in European operations while conducting thousands of missions over Pacific targets. The unarmed Lightning derivatives had proven ideal for strategic reconnaissance due to their speed, altitude capability, and long range that allowed deep penetration of enemy territory. Technology transfer from Lightning development had influenced numerous subsequent aircraft programs. Turbo supercharging techniques, systems integration methods, and manufacturing processes had all found application in later designs. The P-80 jet fighter that had killed Richard Bong incorporated lessons learned from Lightning operations, though the irony was lost on most observers. The P-38 Lightning represented American aviation at its most innovative, concluded Maguyre's final assessment. The aircraft combined advanced technology with practical engineering to create capabilities that no other fighter could match. Its success demonstrated that complex designs could achieve mass production when supported by adequate industrial capacity and systematic development programs. Post-war test programs had validated most wartime assessments while revealing additional capabilities not fully exploited during combat operations. High-speed flight research conducted with modified P-38s contributed to understanding of transonic aerodynamics that influenced jet aircraft development. The Lightning's structural strength and system reliability made it ideal for experimental programs that pushed performance boundaries. By 1948, most P-38 Lightning aircraft had been retired from active service, replaced by jet fighters that offered superior performance in air-to-air combat. But the Lightning's technological legacy continued influencing American aviation development for decades. The aircraft had proven that advanced engineering, systematic production, and innovative tactics could create decisive military advantages when properly integrated. The 40 victories achieved by Richard Bong while flying P-38 Lightnings represented individual excellence within a larger story of American technological and industrial triumph. His success had depended on superior aircraft, excellent training, and tactical innovation that reflected national capabilities rather than just personal skill. The Lightning had made Bong's achievements possible while Bong had demonstrated the aircraft's full potential under combat conditions. Together, pilot and aircraft had symbolized American determination to develop whatever capabilities were necessary to achieve victory in global warfare. The P-38 Lightning's true legacy was not just its combat record but its demonstration that democratic societies could mobilize technological innovation and industrial capacity to defeat totalitarian opponents who had initially appeared invincible. The bronze statue of Major Richard Ira Bong stands today in his hometown of Superior, Wisconsin, gazing skyward with the confident expression of a young man who mastered the most complex fighter aircraft of his generation. Dedicated on September 24, 1970, his 50th birthday, the memorial honors not just America's leading ace but the values and capabilities he represented during the nation's greatest military challenge. 40 confirmed aerial victories, 400 hours of combat flying, 200 combat missions over hostile territory. The statistics tell part of Bong's story, but numbers alone cannot capture the analytical mind, tactical innovation, and quiet courage that made a Wisconsin farm boy into America's deadliest fighter pilot. His achievements reflected personal excellence combined with technological superiority and systematic training that enabled victory over determined opposition. The Lockheed P-38 Lightning provided the platform for Bong's success, while benefiting from his tactical insights and combat experience. The aircraft's sophisticated systems and advanced performance characteristics matched Bong's methodical approach to aerial combat. Together, pilot and aircraft represented American capabilities at their finest, individual skill supported by technological innovation and industrial capacity that proved decisive in global warfare. Bong's tactical principles, developed through combat experience and analytical study of aerial warfare, influenced fighter doctrine throughout American air forces and beyond. His emphasis on altitude advantage, energy management, and engagement discipline became standard practices adopted by all fighter pilots. The systematic approach to aerial combat that he pioneered remained relevant even as jet aircraft replaced propeller-driven designs. The competitive rivalry between Bong and Tommy Maguire generated publicity that personalized American air power for the home front while providing motivation for both pilots to achieve exceptional results. Their combined 78 victories demonstrated the P-38's capabilities while showing how individual excellence could emerge from systematic military training and technological advantage. Maguire's death in January 1945 eliminated the only pilot likely to surpass Bong's record, while illustrating the dangers inherent in pushing tactical boundaries beyond prudent limits. The contrasting outcomes: Bong survived by following proven principles, while Maguire died attempting innovations that violated sound tactical doctrine, provided lessons that influenced fighter pilot training for decades. The P-38 Lightning's technological legacy extended far beyond individual pilot achievements. The aircraft's advanced systems, manufacturing techniques, and operational capabilities established precedents that influenced American aviation development throughout the jet age. Innovations pioneered in Lightning design found application in subsequent aircraft programs that maintained American technological leadership. More broadly, the Lightning program demonstrated democratic society's ability to mobilize scientific knowledge, industrial capacity, and human resources to defeat totalitarian opponents who had initially appeared superior. The aircraft's success reflected systematic advantages: universal education, technological innovation, industrial efficiency that proved more decisive than individual heroism or tactical brilliance. International recognition of American fighter pilot achievement extended beyond military circles to influence global perceptions of democratic capabilities. Bong's success, publicized worldwide, demonstrated that free societies could produce individuals capable of exceptional achievement when supported by adequate technology and training. His victories represented American values as much as military capability. The tragic irony of Bong's death during peacetime test flying highlighted the continued dangers faced by those who pushed aviation's boundaries. His loss just days before Japan's surrender and on the same day as the Hiroshima bombing seemed to symbolize the transition from one era of warfare to another. The pilot who had mastered propeller-driven combat died testing jet technology that would define aviation's future. Educational impact of Bong's achievements influenced generations of American aviators who studied his tactical innovations and professional approach to military service. His analytical methods, systematic preparation, and disciplined execution became models for excellence that transcended specific aircraft types or combat conditions. The principles he developed remained relevant as aviation technology continued evolving. The Richard I. Bong Veterans Historical Center in Superior, Wisconsin, preserves artifacts and documents that tell the story of America's greatest fighter ace while honoring all who served in military aviation. The facility's restored P-38 Lightning provides tangible connection to the aircraft that enabled Bong's achievements while demonstrating the technological sophistication that characterized American wartime production. Memorial sites worldwide commemorate Bong's achievements and those of other American fighter pilots who contributed to Allied victory. Street names, bridges, airports, and recreational areas bearing his name ensure that future generations will remember the farm boy who became an ace while representing his nation's finest qualities under extreme conditions. The enduring fascination with fighter pilot achievement reflects humanity's admiration for individual skill combined with technological mastery. Bong's story resonates because it demonstrates how ordinary individuals can achieve extraordinary results when circumstances demand excellence and proper support enables success. His achievements inspire continued pursuit of excellence in aviation and other demanding fields. Contemporary relevance of Bong's tactical principles extends beyond military aviation to any competitive activity requiring systematic preparation, analytical thinking, and disciplined execution. His approach to mastering complex systems while maintaining focus on fundamental objectives provides lessons applicable to business, athletics, and personal development challenges that require sustained excellence. The P-38 Lightning's role in Bong's success demonstrates how technological advantage can enable individual achievement while requiring personal competence to realize full potential. Neither superior aircraft nor exceptional pilot could have achieved such results independently. Success required the combination of advanced technology with skillful application and systematic training that maximized human capabilities. America's industrial achievement in producing over 10,000 P-38 Lightning aircraft while maintaining quality standards demonstrated democratic society's ability to mobilize resources for common defense. The Lightning program represented systematic application of scientific knowledge, engineering expertise, and manufacturing innovation that proved decisive in global conflict. The victory achieved by Bong and other P-38 pilots established American air superiority that enabled subsequent military operations throughout the Pacific theater. Their success broke Japanese air power while providing security for amphibious invasions, bomber operations, and logistical movements that brought the war to successful conclusion. Individual achievements contributed to strategic objectives that determined the conflict's outcome. Modern aviation owes significant debt to innovations pioneered in P-38 Lightning development and operations. Turbo supercharging technology, systems integration methods, and manufacturing techniques all found application in subsequent aircraft programs. The Lightning's influence extended beyond military aviation to commercial aircraft development that benefited civilian transportation worldwide. The human story behind technological achievement reminds us that complex systems require skilled operators to realize their full potential. Bong's success demonstrated that individual excellence remains essential even in an age of sophisticated machinery. His achievements inspire continued pursuit of personal competence combined with technological innovation. Richard Bong's legacy as America's ace of aces represents the intersection of individual skill, technological advancement, and national purpose that characterized American participation in World War II. His 40 victories symbolized the defeat of totalitarian aggression through democratic determination supported by industrial capacity and technological innovation. The farm boy from Wisconsin had helped win the greatest conflict in human history while embodying the values that made victory possible. In the end, the story of Richard Bong and the P-38 Lightning illustrates timeless principles of achievement under pressure. Excellence requires systematic preparation, analytical thinking, technological competence, and moral courage. Success demands individual skill supported by capable equipment and proper training. Victory belongs to those who combine personal dedication with collective effort toward worthy objectives. The bronze statue in Superior, Wisconsin, gazing skyward, honors not just America's greatest fighter pilot, but the enduring possibility of individual excellence in service of noble purpose. Richard Bong's achievements remind us that ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things when circumstances demand their best efforts and proper support enables their success. His legacy challenges each generation to pursue excellence worthy of the sacrifices made by those who came before. The final accounting of P-38 Lightning operations reveals statistics that demonstrate American industrial and military achievement during World War II. 10,037 aircraft built, 4,800 enemy aircraft destroyed, thousands of successful missions flown under conditions ranging from Arctic cold to tropical heat. The numbers tell a story of technological innovation, manufacturing excellence, and operational success that changed the course of global conflict. Richard Bong's 40 victories represented individual excellence within this larger achievement. His success depended on superior aircraft, excellent training, adequate support, and personal dedication to tactical innovation. But his achievements also demonstrated that human skill remained essential even with technological advantage. The combination of advanced aircraft and exceptional pilot created capabilities that neither could have achieved independently. The Lightning's legacy extends beyond World War II to influence modern aviation development. Technologies pioneered in P-38 design turbo supercharging, systems integration, manufacturing techniques found application in subsequent aircraft programs that maintained American leadership in military and commercial aviation. The aircraft's influence continues in current designs that trace their ancestry to innovations first implemented in Lockheed's twin-boomed fighter. Educational value of studying P-38 operations and pilot achievements provides insights relevant to contemporary challenges requiring systematic excellence. The analytical methods, disciplined preparation, and technological competence demonstrated by successful Lightning pilots offer models for achievement in any demanding field. Their example inspires continued pursuit of excellence combined with innovation. The human cost of achieving air superiority must be remembered alongside technological and statistical achievements. Thousands of pilots and aircrew members died in P-38 operations, along with ground personnel who supported combat operations under dangerous conditions. Their sacrifice enabled victory while demonstrating the price paid by those who serve in dangerous occupations during wartime. International recognition of American fighter pilot achievement influenced global perceptions of democratic capabilities and values. The success of pilots like Richard Bong demonstrated that free societies could produce individuals capable of exceptional performance when properly supported and motivated. Their achievements represented American ideals as much as military capability. The enduring fascination with fighter pilot stories reflects humanity's admiration for individual courage combined with technological mastery. These accounts inspire continued pursuit of excellence while honoring those who risked everything in service of their nation. The legacy challenges each generation to maintain the capabilities and values that enable free societies to defend themselves against aggression. Modern relevance of World War II aviation achievement extends beyond military applications to civilian aviation, space exploration, and technological development that benefits all humanity. The systematic approach to complex problems demonstrated by aircraft designers, pilots, and support personnel provides models for addressing contemporary challenges requiring sustained excellence and innovation. The P-38 Lightning and Richard Bong represent American achievement at its finest, individual excellence supported by technological innovation and industrial capacity that proved decisive in global conflict. Their story reminds us that freedom's defense requires continued vigilance, technological competence, and moral courage from each generation. The farm boy from Wisconsin who became America's ace of aces embodies possibilities that remain open to those willing to pursue excellence in service of worthy objectives. In remembering their achievements, we honor not just past accomplishments but ongoing responsibilities to maintain the capabilities and values that enable democratic societies to thrive. The legacy of America's ace of aces challenges us to pursue excellence worthy of those who sacrificed for our freedom while preparing future generations to meet whatever challenges may arise. The twin-boom silhouette of the P-38 Lightning, climbing into morning skies with Richard Bong at the controls, represents hope that individual excellence and technological innovation can overcome any challenge when combined with determination to defend freedom and human dignity. Their legacy endures in the continuing pursuit of excellence that honors their memory while protecting the values they served.